son. Where'd you find this?
Buckle up, buttercups. It's time to get down to business. Oh, yeah. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Totally legit.
All right, folks, welcome back. It is once again the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. I'm your host, James Oliva. Thank you for tuning in. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. That really helps out the channel. Today, I'm very excited, and I want to give a special shout out to Ryan Rado for hooking this up. Another one. He might as well be a producer on this show. We have a legend of Nashville, a cornerstone of underground rock music, fitness professional, master debater, and frontman of Nashville Darlings. Look what I did. Welcome to the show, Barry Donegan.
Hey, I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate you putting me over.
No, dude, this is great. Thank you. Thank you again for doing this. And thank you for rescheduling with the birth of my child.
Congratulations, man. Has everything been going smooth? I mean, I've been there. That first year is just kind of like you're on call 24 hours a day for like fake crises that are not real crises. And then by the time you have a fifth kid, you don't pay attention anymore. But, that's how that rolls.
Well, basically, I deliberately tried. My problem is that I put my idea of something on a thing before it's a thing, right? And then when I come to actually deal with that thing, it's not what my idea of it was, and it always causes some static. So with this, I tried to have a completely blank slate, and I'm not going to lie, it's been hilarious. It's been kind of crazy intense, obviously, with just kind of like being on the rotation of every couple of hours, having to feed and change and stuff, but it's been really fun. All those nights of playing shows and bars until 3 a.m. or working live events, they're finally paying off.
You now have
like,
the skill
I really
set.
feel like, dude, it's like my wife can go to sleep in the corner of the couch for like a good 6 hours, and I can kind of maintain like the really difficult hours with ease. And it's been a lot of fun. There is one hilarious observation I've had. This may make it in the podcast, or it may be taken out because, you'll see. So I have a son, right? Okay. And he wears diapers, obviously. And when he's all over his.
Oh yeah.
And I have to take him into this room that's kind of cold. It's been like record lows here for the past 10 years in New York, -15, -6, really harsh colds. So I have to undress him, and he's freezing, and then I hit him with this cold wet wipe, and I have to wipe all the off of his, and he's screaming his brains out, and I can't explain to him, like, you don't realize this, but I'm helping you. You just need to see me through with this, and you will be better on the other side. You know what I mean? And there was like so many moments where I was coming to the realization that most of my adult life has been having that exact same conversation, but with adults.
Oh yeah, that they're
like, most of my adult life has been wiping the off of other people's as they yell at me because they're unhappy about it, when they don't realize that I'm like trying to help them or trying to do them a solid.
Sometimes that's how it works. It's a thankless job, but I think if you approach things with principles, that it doesn't matter if they thank you or not. That, you know what I mean? Especially if you know they're going to be in a emotionally prime scenario where they, to the broad point that we'll get into later with political rhetoric and stuff and debate, is that I think in general, like when you're dealing with people, if you try to put as much benefit of the doubt and understanding as to what they're going through into the beginning of the interaction, and then take nothing personal that stems from that. You know what I mean? Like if somebody's mad for some reason, it has nothing to do with you, and it's just the way it is, and you're having to break bad news to them, you should expect they probably aren't going to handle that well. Maybe they're going to come at you over it. It's not your fault. Maybe because their character isn't that great. Not everybody has great character, So, if you want to reach people that don't have great character, sometimes you have to just work around it. You know what I mean? Work around their flaws.
And some situations people handle stress differently. So when you're trying to interact with people in a situation like that, some people aren't calm and collected.
Yeah, so they're not going to give you a good look of themselves. And so if you don't judge them, then they'll actually learn to like you more later when they realize they can actually kind of lose their shit in front of you, and you're not going to completely turn on them. You know what I mean?
Judge them. Yeah. Well, we were talking a bit before we started, and we can kind of enter here because I feel like this also will lead us into Look What I Did. But basically, I used to live in Murfreesboro and Nashville. Those are some very fond times from my memory. Look What I Did was a huge influence on me. Atlas Drugged is still one of my favorite records.
I appreciate it.
You know, I remember seeing even, I think one of my bands played a show or two with you guys.
What band was it at the time? Do you remember?
It was a metal band, a death metal band called Castles of Tomb.
Oh, I remember Castles of Tomb. Yeah, that was pretty sick.
Yeah, we played at. I remember this. This is hilarious. You'll probably enjoy this. So, it was my understanding. I didn't know at all about Look What I Did before I moved to Murfreesboro. I moved to Murfreesboro from Nebraska, and my buddy Clint G was really kind of getting me up to speed with the local music scene. The bands that I gravitated toward were Tony Danza and you guys. And we started, you know, the metal band. He was the singer. We started the metal band and we were playing some shows and we got a show with you guys. I'm pretty sure it was at Walnut House, that studio.
Oh, yeah. In Murfreesboro? Yeah, I remember that show, actually, now that you mention it.
And I just remember, like, we were, you know, the stereotypical death metal band of the 2010s, you know, and that was just like a huge thing in that area, which it was not the case in Nebraska. So I was super into it. And I remember you were like roasting us. You were like, this song goes out to the bands who talk about death. Like I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was hilarious. And I remember looking at Clint and I was like, we just got roasted by Barry. Sick, dude. We made it. We're official Murfreesboro people. You know what I mean? You guys, I didn't understand what kind of impact you had there until time like went on. I didn't even realize that you guys had moved out to California. I learned all that history much, much later. But I just remember the reason I loved Atlas Drugged is because it was like the perfect balance of music that was politically and socially aware, but it wasn't being crammed in my face. It made me think. I had to, I looked up, you know, lyrics to the songs to be like, what does this mean? How can I interpret this? One that sticks with me is, one fact that rings true is the sheep are me and you.
Yeah, that's a holding pattern. Yeah.
There we go.
You can blame it on the sheep who march blindly to the beat. But the one fact that rings true is the sheep are me and you. Now, one thing people say about our lyrics is that they're kind of like prophetic. I don't think that they're necessarily intentionally prophetic, like I'm a prophet or something. I think it's that I went through things before most people went through them. And I think a lot of it's because of I was, first of all, as an early adopter to bulletin board services. So I was like on the internet probably in the 80s before everybody else was even, before the internet existed. So I'd already gotten in trouble for computer crime. I'd already, you know, like I gotten kind of big on social media in like 2002. So I'd already experienced being big on social media at a time when most people weren't even on social media. So I'd already experienced, and most people I think now are big on social media. Like if you're just like at all not hiding yourself, you're going to accidentally get big on social media now. So I think we have a lot of people that are going through like Kurt Cobain syndrome where they're like suddenly too famous and they don't really want to be because of social media, something that happened to them, you know, like, and certain things with, I also had a celibacy phase that was self-imposed because I wanted to be focused on my career, but it was like a decade. And so it kind of caused me to have some thought processes that I think might be relevant to young men today who struggle to get laid. Now, I've never struggled to get laid, for being honest.
Oh, interesting.
But I just was a celibate for so long that I'd gone through some experiences that had certain thoughts that led me to certain songs that I think probably seem prophetic to people who were like, but back in the day, everyone got laid until the dating apps came out. And when the internet, you know, the internet has changed it where it's not quite that simple. Like you have to put yourself out in a different way, and certain guys benefit from that and certain guys don't. And I think it's kind of made our society really weird in the dating world where it's like people are not, you know, they're unsuccessful in their middle age in terms of dating, which is like kind of like you're headed towards death alone. That's happening to like large percentages of Americans. It's not normal and it's technologically driven. It's like the people that used to be guys that would be like a likable guy, they don't have a way to show themselves on the internet because they don't like look good in a picture, and then in the swiping kind of context, none of their advantages show. You know what I'm saying? And then you have certain little features that people can like height is a modifier on there, but like sense of humor isn't. So like, you know what I mean? It's a modifier. So people use it to reduce the number of people, and that, you know, I think that will have a backlash, and it'll like, people will realize that, you know, the algorithms are not meant to help you find something for you. They're meant to actually entertain you by keeping you constantly on that thing. And if you can't be on a dating app if you have like a significant other. So you know what I mean? The end game is against whenever you're dealing with a business or a service where the end game of your success loses you as a customer, know that they don't want you to succeed. You know what I mean? Like, that's one thing I love about my personal training business. I get paid for workouts. That's it. If you don't do workouts, I don't get paid. So there's no way for me to make money off you being in bad shape. You know what I mean? I can only make money off you getting in good shape. And so that's kind of the thing with, some of those things. And I think that's led our society into a weird place that, maybe some of my celibate experience gave me some understanding to. And then, just like I was very versed on Israel, Palestine in 2000. We had a song about that on Minuteman for the Moment, which was released in 2004. And, we were in trouble with the label. They were like asking questions about the Fox Eats TV Ishmael. That was the song. They were asking all kind of questions about it, in which I was being vague. I was like trying to get the album out without it getting pulled off the album. So flagged. I just didn't really tell them what it was about. I made it sound like it was about the Iraq war, not Israel, Palestine. So it was kind of there's just a lot of stuff where at the time we put it out, it didn't have any audience to connect, but now it feels like there's an audience for all these song topics. You know what I mean? Like Pussy Comitatus, which was like talking about, sort of the anti-male, relentless media campaign, anti-male media campaign, that had started. I noticed it around when I went to college. It was mainly in college at that time, and it was just in academia. But then all those people in academia went on to corporate jobs in marketing, and they started spreading it through the whole corporate world. And then it became totally normal and mainstream to just, if you're male and you have male qualities, those are toxic. You're bad. You're a bad person. So I saw that in college, and I wrote the song "Pussy Comitatus" about that, where it's like, why don't we just kill all the men off then? If they're so bad, you know what I mean? Then we don't need them. Let's just kill them all. It's just kind of the thought experiment that we, if we're going to take it that far. I think things are correcting back now. I think there was like maybe a reasonable correction when it came to some of the stuff that's within the woke umbrella, right? There was like a reasonable amount of like, okay, we need to make sure that people in minority groups aren't being like left out of opportunities for bad reasons. And we need to make sure that, women who are atypical and want to do different kind of lifestyles can be able to do that freely. But then it started going past that to where demonizing mainstream lifestyle. We're saying if you do anything normal, you're bad. Like that started getting, and even for me to say normal, like we have to understand that normal, there is a normal out there, and that's kind of biologically, sociologically human, and it's based on what makes us survive and dominate the environment and win in the world, right? I mean, that's how we're driven, and we can deviate from that 10 or 20% of us. We can't 90% of us deviate from it. We'll all end up back in the Stone Age. You know what I mean? At a certain point, you got to have kids, you got to work jobs, if we don't have kids, there will be nobody to be doing services.
No next generation.
You know what I mean? Like that will quickly turn into a problem. So there's a lot of like philosophical stuff that I just thought about in college and had run into in my touring experience and going around the world that I feel like is just, we come to today. Minuteman for the Moment has a lot of topics that are, reflective of today. Atlas Drugged had a lot that are reflective of today, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And they were accurate back then. It's not like they weren't relevant then. It's just
people didn't understand it.
Now mainstream society has caught up to that. Yeah, for sure.
But I did always with my songs. I tried not to like just put obvious political positioning in there. I tried to make it a topic. We're asking questions, and it's with metaphors and symbols. So if you're not actually politically engaged, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, and you can just listen to the song and jam out. Because I really hate when they just make it really dumb and just jam it down your face, especially when it's dumb retail politics like Democrat, Republican, or president. Right. Presidents have nothing to do with anything, y'all. They have no power. Voting actually barely works. If you really want to make things happen in Robin Hood and take stock in like defense contractors and vote, because you can do that. You know what I mean? You can actually become an investor in one of these companies and vote for them to do things differently than what they're doing now if you wanted to. That would actually give you some power. But reality is, the whole puppet show of politics is there for entertainment to keep us. Pageantry. They're not going to change what they do based on who's in office. That's never been how it goes.
Well, this is exactly what I was hoping for on this podcast, because we are 15 minutes in and we're already down the headiest rabbit holes. But again, this is why I even back then I gravitated to what you were doing, because you would be able to. And for those who don't live in the South, who've never lived in the South, my family is from New York. I moved around, but I was raised like a New Yorker. And living at the long stretches of time that I lived in the South, it was very different. And it was very hard to have any type of reasonable exchange of, much less philosophic, but like just surface level politics with anybody. But you always seem to be able to do that in a really coherent way, sober. Like somebody could hit you with some like maybe even borderline offensive question, but you'd be able to ingest it, dismantle it from your perspective, and also not be like emotionally agitated or whatever their original intent was with throwing you that question. Or I don't know. I've always appreciated that.
That's something my grandma taught me. Now, my grandma, Bobby Doris Spears, was the first woman ever appointed to head like a regional federal department in the federal government. And she ran the Southeast region of the U.S. Department of Labor, right? I mean, there's WikiLeaks cables about her because when she was on she accused the Soviets of forced labor during the international labor, it's whatever the UN's international labor conference is. And so there was a while where she had Secret Service protection. But she taught me that for debating, you don't debate something you don't know what you're talking about, number one. And take your position and pre-argue all the other possible arguments that are going to come at you. And then just remember to never lose your emotions and just have 2 or 3 trains ready for every argument that they're going to give you. And so they give you an argument and you hit them back immediately with something. And they give you another argument, you hit them back immediately with something because you already knew their argument. You knew those flaws that they were going to bring up in your argument, right? And so then they're usually getting angry because you're just out robo-doping them. You're like, you know what I'm saying? And so I understand that the tactic's going to make people angry. So if they get angry and start calling me a name or something, I'm like, well, whatever, you're losing, so you're angry. Like, this is honestly, I play basketball, you know what I'm saying? And you talk in the game as part of the strategy of the game. You know what I mean? And so even in basketball, I do the same thing. I'm nice. I'm like nice defender. I'm like complimenting your move that you just did to let you know that I know you did it. And I don't want you to get mad at
the ultimate mind game.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to get all motivated by beating me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, there's different mind games you can play, but I think in debating, the best mind game is just to be nice and just be friendly and just be kind, and then just continue to push your arguments, and then let them, if they are going to start attacking you and calling you names. I think that's one thing. People, they feel like somebody comes on and calls you a name, now you have to defend yourself. Never defend yourself from a name type thing. That's not you. Never do it. That's almost like admitting you believe it. So if you just move past, when they do something like that, you move past it, say something friendly, and then continue your argument. It's like, it always works. It makes them look unhinged. So that was the main tactic for a while. Like, people started fireballing. Like, basically, we have to realize that Nazi has become a dehumanizing term. This is probably one of the hottest takes ever, but it's becoming, in a way, a new N-word that you call someone to kind of lower their human value down to a level that you can do inhumane, violent, horrible things to them. That's kind of the main point of characterizing people as Nazis. Now, we do have some trolls who are characterizing themselves as Nazis in their mom's basement now, but real Nazism as like an actual thing is like at its lowest points in long periods of time. People don't remember, like in the 90s, there was actually Nazis that came to shows and beat the hell out of everybody, and there'd be like 15 of them. Yeah. It wasn't like something you could easily deal with. Like, they would come in and ruin shows and stuff. And if you ran clubs, you had to have some level of negotiation with them to be able to keep them away on certain nights and stuff like that. And so, like, a lot of times that was negotiated between them, the police, and whatever. But it's like, they were real gangs that were violent and big guys who've been in prison with tattoos. Now your Nazis are like an 11 to 21-year-old guy who's never been outside once, whose skin is so pale it's never seen sunlight a single time, who's just been playing World of Warcraft, or I don't know if that's probably too old of a game for people to play anymore, but whatever the game they're playing, has been playing in his mom's basement, and he just is an annoying troll, and he's found people insult him when he uses racist language, so he uses it more now. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just being encouraged to troll more, which is something people don't realize. Like most people don't really honestly believe in hate anymore because it's actually just really inconvenient and for even a racist, because you just have so many friends around that are different races and stuff now, no matter where you are. I don't give like if you live in the deep South, like actually I've always deep South, Nashville's been diverse always. That's something people don't understand.
Yeah, always.
But like, it's pretty hard. It's pretty awkward now. Like wars are awkward because you probably have friends from another country on a video game or on some other platform that you're on, TikTok or something. You met friends from across borders. So now wars are getting awkward. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think hate is really, really growing in the way that people make it sound. But it is if you make it sound that the biggest thing in politics to manipulate everyone is fear. And they're going to keep a state of fear at all times. And if there's nothing happening, they're going to keep a state of fear. I mean, we're really have the least things to be afraid of. Everyone, worldwide. Global war is at its like lowest point. I mean, there's definitely still some places where people are getting hamburgered out left and right. I'm not going to lie about that, but it is globally, it's always happened. And if you thought before the internet was better than it is now, you got the game twisted. You just didn't have a video of it. I can tell you right now, cops were way worse before the internet, especially in Rutherford County. But
for sure, for sure.
Before my buddy got him that one time on that 4th of July video, but.
Well, it's one of those things too, where it's like, I've had this debate a million times on this show, but like the pros and cons of a surveillance state, right? Cameras are everywhere. That's a huge win in a lot of ways, but then cameras are everywhere and we're not necessarily going to realize that we've sacrificed it until it's completely gone. But again, at this point, even with like, body cams and stuff rolling out, that's a net positive. You're right. Things were worse when people didn't get caught on video doing it. And, now the accountability is a little more ironclad than
it's really good now. We have a hard debate about almost all the controversial shootings, and it's good that we do. Now, I don't necessarily think that they're all murders in the way that people want them to be. I say that as one of the people I've played Simon Says You're Dead with cops before. I was falsely accused of aggravated armed robbery one time in Murfreesboro. So I had 13 Murfreesboro cops yelling contradictory instructions with a gun at me while I'm like, now what I didn't do was run at them or do any, put my hands up and start going down, right? You know what I mean? Right that second, because that's my instincts told me. But bear in mind, a lot of people that get in these encounters with cops, they haven't been in violent situations before. When I was in my 20s, I've been in fights. I've been in scenarios where people pull guns on people and stuff. So I was like kind of had better tuned survival instincts. My body wasn't liable to go, do some unknown thing, but some people's do that. But that's why you have to be careful with use of force encounters. They're very complicated, and it's good that we have a serious debate. But you do have to bear in mind that these cops are getting paid $40,000 a year, and they don't have training for more than 2 weeks on use of force. So if you choose to play the, ooh, am I reaching? Oh, am I not? Ooh, am I reaching? Ooh, am I not? If you try to play any kind of game around use of force with the cops, you will end up getting shot sometimes. It's just statistical. And it's not just America, and it's not based on the style of training. It's just based on the whole notion of protesting by making complicated use of force around a $40,000 a year paid guy who's, got 2 weeks of training. It's just... Right. I would just go to the courthouse and I would make my opinions known that way. I wouldn't run out in the middle of the street or go in someone's private home and make gray areas around because those are gray areas. Sometimes you do have the right to defend yourself from those things, depending on what you're doing. So the point is to create a gray area so that you'll have an incident. But the problem is if you do that type of protest, you're going to be an incident sometimes. You know what I mean? It's the reality of it. That's the nature of that kind of hard line, direct action going right at the police protest is it does, there's an element of that's the game you're playing. You're playing the game of we need the cop to do something that looks bad. And the thing that looks bad is not good for your health. So for me, that's never been, I ran protests. I had protests against bombings in Syria that I ran that were on the news in 2009 in Nashville. And what I did is I contact the news. I'd get like 20 or 30 veterans that I know who agree with me to come do the protest with me. So I have a bunch of swole dudes. I got like 20 swole dudes. And I'm like, everybody come out. We're keeping our message on Syria. We're not talking about 9/11 or Jews or any other thing that weird people want to talk about. We were talking about precisely the Syria strikes, and we're going to say it right. And so ours was like, they come up and they cut the crowd to look big. They have it right because we're cooperating with them. And then they give us a good looking news article that tells what we want them to tell. And then it creates sympathy towards our our goal. What doesn't do that is blocking the street, and now somebody's got an ambulance and they're in the back and they die. And now you've completely ruined your whole movement. You know what I mean? That's why like the fundamental style of protest, that's kind of like where you like ride the line of protest or threatening violence or violating somebody's rights by surrounding their car where they can't escape, and you're angry and they can't escape, and it's your First Amendment right. You don't have a First Amendment right to surround someone and make them think they're about to die. That's assault. Absolutely. It's like a group assault. It's like a RICO assault or a, you know what I mean? Like there's levels with this stuff that you have to be, there's a nuance, there's a middle to it. You know what I mean? And I get people that say, hey, this is such an important issue that somebody does need to die right now so they get enough attention. And sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's not true, and it backfires. And everyone has to agree with you if you're going to do it that way to a certain extent. Like, not necessarily everyone has to agree with you, but they have to be. It just, that's rarely works. Most of the time it doesn't work. It creates more division, and it does not move your movement forward. That's only good if no one knows about something, right? Let's say no one's ever heard that anyone died in Palestine from Israel, right? And then you died publicly in a way that caused everyone to look it up. You know, that there's an argument for that. When it comes to like, you know,
like a burning monk almost kind of
but
deal.
An issue that everyone knows, that's a 50-50 issue, that you're trying to win people more over to your side. What you don't do is anything like that. That's not going to win one person over. That's going to reduce the people on your side. You know what I mean? And I just say that as a guy who's done protest activism, who honestly wants everybody to achieve whatever they want to achieve with their protests. It does not really work most of the time when you do it that way.
Well, you also, like, you possess like this very strange set of complementary skills. You know, again, we were talking about beforehand, like your family's connection. You've got a very political family, family members that are judges, family members that have been involved actively in the process of government. And that was just something that you were aware of even as a kid, because it's what you're growing up around. But then you kind of have this ability to look at things from this very chaotic perspective, which is not buttoned up, you know, to the point where you're like screaming about it on a stage with a band. And it's just like, what I guess my question here is like, which is the dominant? Is there a dominant? Is the band like a manifestation of your philosophy and the philosophy that do you see what I'm saying? Like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Or are they symbiotic
together? You know? Right? Like my whole family, like my great grandfather was a state senator, but he was also like a guy who, was pretty libertine. I'm from a pretty libertine kind of Scotch-Irish Southern family, the kind of one where you kind of like maybe smoke weed and drink beers at Christmas, but you pray, kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, so my family is more like open-minded and artsy while also being political and probably center-right, I guess, culturally. I mean, they're all Southern and from Tennessee and Texas and stuff, so it's kind of like, I was just always able to express myself artistically. It's like my grandfather was a rocket scientist. He worked on the Redstone missile and the Saturn V, which put manned space flights up and went to the moon and everything else. He was like a poet, played piano, boogie woogie piano, and like, you know, he was like my role model for sure. And my dad, Mike Donegan, radio DJ, 103.3 KDF back when it was a rock station. He was the announcer for the Titans. So like he was a shock rock radio DJ when I was like 11 years old. So I was like allowed to go to the Ozzy Osbourne concert front row when I'm 11 years old. You know what I'm saying? So like rock and roll was a part of my identity because of my dad, and kind of like everyone accepted that. And so it allowed me in the 80s to be the kids that could have a metal shirt on at school and play Dungeons and Dragons. That also meant we were the ones blamed if anything turns up missing or is wrong.
Definitely,
because we were the guys. Like Skeet in my band, he had the half shave, half long hair in 1988, dude. Nobody was allowed to have that hair at school. That was like, you know what I mean? His mom let him do it, but we were just like those kids at school anyway. And like, I've always been kind of just encouraged to be out expressive. And now granted, my family raised me that we are controversial and we are edgy, but we are well liked in the community. That's how I was raised to be. Like, You say what you want to say, but you find a way to like make everyone okay with it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, even though you're not going to be a standard guy running right down the middle doing whatever everybody wants you to do.
Towing a line.
Yeah. There'll be no line towing by me. I'm not capable of it. If there's an arbitrary line, I will have to fight it. I can't, especially if it ain't right. I can't. I physically can't. I mean, I've been self-employed my whole life. I can't even work for a company because of that. You know what I mean? If the company tells me that you need to go clean these up, and I'm like, that's a dumb idea. I'm just unable to move forward.
Not going to do it. Yeah.
Unable to do that.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, and it does make a lot of sense. Like I didn't know any of the history of your family, but I always wondered, like, how was he this smart? How was he this adept at this young? Were you also like a speech and debate person, or was speech and debate just a part of living in your family?
Yeah, it was part of living in my family. My grandma worked me, man. She would work me. We really would just go back and forth. It was a lot of fun, honestly. But yeah, it was like, I mean, I went to college. I was going to go to law school. And then my grandma died of a stroke at 59. Just like, I could see the loop of the debate process she'd built in me. Take her life. So I was like, you know what? I'm going into music and I'm going to LA. And I dropped out of college my senior year. And
really?
At MTSU. So and my family, I had a full scholarship at the beginning of college, right? I had a full presidential scholarship, University of Memphis, plus a dorm paid for, plus money, the whole works. It was like a deluxe deal. And then, I dropped out of there and went to Cumberland. I was never into college. I hated college. I feel like college, they were asking me to jump through hoops so they could tell me their opinions, and it wasn't what I was promised at all. And there was a lot of indoctrination going on. I wrote a lot of songs about that. I'm majoring in psychology as one of them. But I saw a lot of the beginnings of what became cancel culture moving through college back then. And a lot of the critical theory stuff, like critical theory, okay. Critical theory has a place in the critical theory wing, but we don't let it out of the wing into the mainstream part of the college, right? Critical theory is, okay, let's start with the principle. Racism exists systemically, and let's say everything is racist, and let's throw all this at the wall and see what sticks. I think that's a great thought process. But once you find the 500 things that aren't racist, you can't continue pretending they're racist. You know what I mean? That's where critical theory went crazy. Because now you start saying things are having a racial cause that aren't. And now you're trying to do things that have no relevance to the whole point. And most of the time, the way that works is somebody with a political goal that has nothing to do with race, who's usually white and wealthy, is imposing this through the critical theory thing, and they're using the race card to basically pull off one of the things from their agenda. That's why whenever we have these big woke uprisings, we never have something meaningful. Like, what if they meaningfully, like the biggest threat to African American progress right now is getting arrested and put in jail for 50 years for weed for no reason when nobody's supposed to get put in jail for that in the first place. Like that alone, that type of policy would have a transformative effect. But instead we get things like race swapping movie characters or something. You know what I mean? Which is
Disney diversifying.
That's not even a thing. That's just enraging people. That just creates racism where there wasn't any for no reason, where we could have just had a real meaningful policy that lets people out of a prison that they're currently in not being festering. You know what I mean? That I'd see all day, but that's not where it goes. That's not where the conversation goes, because with critical theory, you're allowed to insert any, and a lot of times it's left-wing economic stuff that's shoved in under the auspices of race, where they'll claim it'll have a disproportionately beneficial benefit to some racial group just by declaring it based on a think tank that said something to them. You know what I mean? It's based on nothing. And then they're basically taking what could be when you get political capital to do something, you get one thing you can do. You can't do 5 things. So if you come in and you say we're race swapping Disney characters, that's all you got. You know what I mean? That's really all you're going to get. So you shouldn't do anything that isn't a real thing with that political capital. You should only do something that's a major thing that's very important. Because if you don't get anything done. You know what I mean? You just get people more angry and you create people digging their feet in, which is what we've been having. You know, we've not been having, these issues get solved.
No. Discourse is dead, dude. We don't do that here anymore. I don't know. Again, like this is why I always appreciated all the stuff that you created, even back then and up until now, because like we should be able to live. The world that I want to live in is a world where we can talk about all of the really uncomfortable things and no one gets weird about it. That's it. That's all I want to live in a world of reality where we can talk about harsh realities and it's okay. And we can figure out ways to get around them or, not to say that we ever did that, but I think, and I don't know, again, because you have experience with the internet when it was in its infancy, it is beyond a conspiracy now that the entire infrastructure of the internet that we interact with, at least here in America, is just designed to sell us shit or mine our data. That's what the purpose is. That's why it's free.
Yeah, it is.
They didn't give it to us for
Nothing's
free.
free.
We're paying for it with our data and with our eyeballs. I did an episode about this VC firm that's like connected to the CIA called In-Q-Tel. I don't know if you've ever heard of In-Q-Tel, but In-Q-Tel developed all of like the very first wave technologies that we use for everything: GPS, targeted ads, even Google Earth. That was CIA funded through In-Q-Tel. It was this thing called Keyhole, whatever. This is an infrastructure that only exists for surveillance and commoditizing us in some way. So when I see, especially in the past couple of years with, I'm interested in your take. What level of the media landscape that we occupy right now, what portion of that is not a psyop? Because I feel like every single thing from every possible angle, from every screen in this prison of screens that we live in, something is being sold to me, whether it's a product, an ideology, something and like I am somewhat aware of it, but I still succumb to it just like any of us do. What level of this is not a psyop?
Well, everything is a psyop, but everything isn't a psyop at the same time. Like, there's motivations to be a psyop. There's alphabet groups doing psyops, and they're using social media and the internet. And the internet and social media was designed, definitely the internet was designed for that. Now, I think social media now is in a weird loophole where their algorithms are all about engaging you right now. And those things have gotten to where, like, what engages people right now is basically violence and division and anger and rage. Yeah. And that's the main problem, is that people are falling for rage bait left and right. And so they're giving you what you want. You know what I mean? Now, that creates this problem. I don't think this was actually anyone's intentional thing, because I think the political class doesn't benefit from this. They're getting assassinated and stuff. It's really hard to be a politician right now. You know what I mean? They probably like a little bit lower tensions. But problem is that, people are just getting hyped up by the rage bait, and they're getting, they're kind of without double checking, running like, okay, there's lot of things going on in the world right now. You know what I mean? Whether it be some of the foreign policy war conflicts that are going on, drug addictions, whether it's, the ICE situation with the enforcement, whatever you're feeling about that, like all these things are serious things that are happening in the world, but they're on video and you can watch them from 100 angles. And we did not get to do that. Just even during the swine flu, we didn't really have the internet. Yeah. And that was a major pandemic. And, the shock level of it was so much lower because we didn't have the ability to rage and to freak everyone out. So we didn't have like all of society stop and shut down over it, because there was no way to get everybody that scared. You know what I mean? Like, and then you go back, like when people don't realize that Obama had this is Trump's ICE policy is an Obama turn back on. That's all that is. You just turn the Obama system back on. Obama had like 50 people in 1 year that were shot, where the agents jumped up on the roofs and used it as an excuse for use of force. You know what I mean? There's a whole congressional investigation in 2014 about it, right? That's something that, so if someone's going to say like, we're in a Holocaust, which the Holocaust, millions of Jews and other types of minorities were purposefully like
systematically destroyed.
A machine of death that hundreds at a time, over and over again, like a factory. That is not happening. Nothing remotely close to that is happening. Okay, guys, we got to slow down to there. We got to slow to that down, because morally, you can justify a lot of really bad, wild stuff if you really believe that's happening, right? You can really start shooting people where they shouldn't be getting shot. Bombing buildings.
Yeah,
there's a disproportionate reaction that happens if you don't understand what's actually politically happening, right? Now, what's happening is a removal. It's a removal. Some people would consider that a human rights crisis of a type, but it's not a industrial strength genocide. It's nothing even within and removals happen a lot in non-Nazi Germany's, and they've happened in America during the entire Obama administration, and to the tune of millions. He was the all-time champ. Like, even the previous presidents, their deportations were at the border. They were not going in and taking someone from their house and throwing them out of the country. That started under Obama, and that was Obama's big policy, and it was a part of what got him elected. You know what I mean? So if we're saying like this is Hitler and Nazi Germany, then we got to start with charges for Obama first for inventing the whole policy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to say this is because both sides are doing it, is what I'm saying. Both sides do it, all this stuff. Yeah. And you get tricked into retail politics, into Denver Broncos versus the Patriots football by believing in the little, and most of the narrative issues are not even significant. Like, if you look at what Congress is doing within a budget, start there. And actually start in your local community, because those ones you can actually personally affect. You really can't do it with this
influence
federal. This federal is a momentum thing. It's like, you can take what the defense gave you. You can't force anything. It's too big. It's a aircraft carrier. It's not a Porsche. It turns slowly. You can't just walk up and bust it into whatever you want it to do. As a human being, you got no power. If you don't have billions of dollars, you got no power. So that factor in there means you should start local. If you really want to change something, you can actually get something changed. And those local changes matter. And also, every federal thing has a local field office with like 8 people working in it. You know what I mean? You could probably talk them into something personally if you just walk in there and talk to them. You know what I mean? Like, that stuff is changeable. And I've done local politics and had effect, you know what I mean, in it myself. I actually ran for, as a joke, and got elected to the Davids County Republican Party. I was director at large for 2 years. And then they had to start politicians had to come to me to get the money out of the party. So I started making demands. You know what I'm saying? And it actually changed stuff a lot. And they started being weird about certain things. Like, they knew I was for legal weed and stuff. So like, people just kind of like, after I started like being there, they kind of didn't want to offend me. And it kind of became a part of their establishment, and then they couldn't like take positions anymore. Like, they were suddenly kind of quasi pro weed, if not like neutral, because they knew that like somebody was for it, and their strength of being against it wasn't that great. And like, it's weird how you being in the room. I remember one time, the party was having a core value statement meeting, right? And I went in there, 5-1 neocons, me being the one non-neocon, and this one guy's like, we should put in our core values. This was like back in the War on Terror. We should put in our core values that we believe in enhanced interrogation techniques, whatever we need to do to get the information out of the terrorists, right? And so I'm thinking that's torture. That's not a human right thing that America could do. I'm not for that. And I can't bring this back to the libertarian guys that are on the board. They're going to shut it down. So my thought was, I'm going to show you how I operate, because there's no way I could have like argued a point and won with them, right? There's no way. So what I said was, you know what? I'm a professional writer. And I think that to most people, what you're talking about is within the scope of a strong national defense. And I think everyone knows that it means all the other programs that we have for that, like that. And that as a writer, it's just more firm and strong if we say we're for a strong national defense. And they were like, yeah, I think that's better, you know? And so I just deleted it, dude. I just deleted it. It's gone now. It's like, I said it's in there, but it isn't. It's not written down. So like, whatever I negotiated with them is not valid. Like, when you walk into the thing and write it down, it's not written on there. So it's not on there. The Davis County Republican Party would have been endorsing officially torture, which they would actually right now, they probably would be for that. So they'd be mad that they'd done that. But you know what I mean? Like, I was there in the room when they were deciding, are we for torture or not? And I was like, I didn't say no, but I just ninja them to where they didn't do it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, some real Jedi mind.
Yeah, trick, it was ninja moves.
Jedi level mind tricks.
You know, but that's like, honestly, when it's 4-on-1 and you're trying to get something done, you just can't kick in the front door, dude. You're 4-on-1. What are you gonna do? Democratically, I had no way, so I just had to like skill them. You know.
So much of like your lore reminds me of the book Rules for Radicals. I don't know if you ever read that
Saul
book.
Alinsky. Yeah.
Saul Alinsky, yeah. But better. It's like if George Carlin wrote that book for Saul Alinsky. And again, that's one of my favorite things about your characters, the chaotic nature. Like, you could walk into any room with anybody and coherently argue either side because you're willing to listen. You actually did the homework.
Right.
You read, you listened.
If you listen to what
broadened your scope of input.
Right. You can actually win the debate. If you listen to what they're really worried about and you actually listen to it and you actually care, you can win the debate with somebody. But like, I'll tell you another funny one, speaking of rules for radicals. I had this buddy who's like super, I'm not going to put him on blast, but he's like super political, but he's kind of further into that conspiracy world, kind of almost militia level. And he would come to things that the Republican Party was putting on and like try to physically fight, Sean Hannity and stuff like that. And I am good friends with him and can reason with him. And while I was on the board, whenever he would plan to do something, I mean, this wasn't coordinated at all, but like when he would plan to do something, I would start thinking, like, what could I get the party to do that would make him stop? You know what I mean? And then I would go to the party and be like, hey, man, that guy's planning to come and mess with the event Friday. So, like, if we just did, like, something cool for, like, Ron Paul or something, maybe, like, I could just tell him, hey, they just did something cool for Ron Paul. Could you, like, chill out right now? I'm getting something done. You know what I mean? And then, like, I just did that multiple times, and I just started just getting them to do stuff. You know what I'm saying? And it was kind of, if we're being honest, like, it's not my fault because I was just talking him out of it, but it kind of had a role of like politician working with, the radicals to kind of, that happens if you don't realize it. The politician will be like, whoa, lost my earplug. The politician will be like, they'll be like, call their little terrorist buddy or something. You know what I mean? Somebody that's willing to do some wild stuff and be like, hey, we need something right now. And then they work to negotiate with the mainstream to get concessions to end that, right? That's like a system that goes on. It's happening right in front of your eyes right now because we're in one of those eras where power is shifting, right? So there's a lot of that type of play pulling out right now. So, yeah, that's something to watch out for. But yeah, we did in that case. I kind of used it a little. I didn't mean to. It was kind of like the ball was rolling towards this incident potentially happening. And I see the ball rolling. And I think, how can I stop this and get a concession? And, because to be fair, sometimes with those protest movements and the unrest and the violence and that kind of stuff, you can't control it. The person is ideologically motivated. This guy was ideologically motivated. If I didn't give him a real thing that mattered to him, he would do it. He didn't give a shit what I said. I couldn't do it like, please don't, as a friend. He wouldn't give a shit about that. He'd be like, you're for all the bad things in the world. So, you know what I mean? He would not be for that.
Bootlicker?
That's not going to work. But I had to be like, okay, well, I'm going to get something so that we don't have, to do this. And then boom, it would kind of work. And so think of that. That's the thing that happens overall in power. You know what I mean? Kind of in the rules for radicals. Bear in mind, Saul Alinsky, rules for radicals, that was like the guy for Obama and the Obama era political guys, right? So they all use
Hillary
that stuff.
Clinton, like she was, I'm pretty sure, a direct underling of Saul Alinsky at one point.
Which one you mean?
Hillary
Clinton. Yeah. That group was, and they built the tactic. Their thing is what became the woke kind of thing, which is like ridicule the intelligence of your opponent, debase their humanity so that they're not valid in the debate. Kind of is kind of how you mock them relentlessly. It's kind of the style of that, but it's like it worked for a while. But I think people are done just being insulted every time they have a slight disagreement over, like, if that's your only tactic, like, they use it for anything, right? So it could be a debate over the water bill. And if somebody's like, you're literally a Nazi, dude, if you think the water bill should be $2.13 and I think it should be $2.15, it's like, okay, man, come on. That's
I'm pulling up a meme that has been so relevant to so much of our existence over the past 10 years. And it's of a children's book that's titled "Everyone I Don't Like Is Hitler."
Yeah. Reductio ad Hitlerum. See, bear in mind, that was once again, I was on the internet early, man. I was in BBSs in the 80s, but every argument goes to Hitler on the internet. And so if you do a Hitler argument on the internet, you're kind of new to the internet. And we do have a lot of people that are new to the internet in the last 10 years. I think that's what it is. We had a lot of lower intelligence people because the devices got simpler. Before that, it was like complicated, and most people were news readers on the internet. But now most people are video viewers of the news on the internet, which means they don't understand what just happened. They literally don't even read the words of what happened. So they're being led by rhetoric and characterizations to believe what they believe. You know what I mean? Like, so they don't even know what they're talking about, and there are just huge numbers of them, and they outnumber the people that read news and stuff. So like, we're in a whole new era of like mob mentalities and, you know, sort of that kind of thing. Like, social contagion.
I mean, we're for sure we're in territory that humanity has never been before. We're coming up to these so many different existential questions. AI ultimately merging humanity with technology. We're on top of all the political stuff that is changing and society, how society is interfacing with itself and its government. And I just, again, like, your lyrics weren't prophetic, but you were talking about a lot of this stuff. And to me, I am definitely more, like, I have been more conspiracy minded. A long time ago, I kind of came to the conclusion that the same thing with what we're talking about. A lot of the top echelons of politics, that's pageantry.
Yeah.
That we don't have any say in that, and that's fine. It's fine. It's whatever. Like, yes, that it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't inspire hope or trust or belief in the system, but, you know, whatever. Locally is a different story. Locally, you can have a direct impact, and even if that's something as simple as you just organizing an event with your friends, like that's tangible. You can really do that. Getting the equivalent of that on the federal level is just, you know, virtually impossible for the average citizen, unless you have billions of dollars. But I'm just interested in, like, what, obviously your focus and interest has been a lot with politics, but what other areas of emergent human dread do you see as, like, because so many things are convergent. Like, we're like on the verge of admitting that aliens exist too. Like, there's all these different societal things that are shifting and changing. And, like, where do you see the hot spots, and do we make it? Do we make it?
Oh, we make it. We're doing better all the time. Like, it's, we'll make it out, but it may not be, some of us may not make it on the ride if they can't adapt to the new world. People who become mentally ill off the internet really need to start evaluating whether they should be on it. If you've been better in your mental illness and you're now on the internet and it's real bad, maybe get off it. You know, some people are not actually probably genetically built for the internet, if we're being fair. And they don't have the tools to handle that much access to bad news, to handle videos of everything bad that just happened. Like, those things have always happened in higher numbers. Things have always been much worse than now. Now is way better than ever. This is the easiest time ever to live. It's just that you can't lose the plot and have technology ruin your life. You just have to use it to your advantage instead of using it against you. That's one thing. I'm a trainer. I work out and I help people work out all day, and I play music. I do post things on the internet, but I don't, like, live on the internet. I don't live in algorithms. I'm in y'all's algorithm, but I don't look at it that much, to be totally honest. I kind of have my own non-algorithmic ways of getting content, and I don't really sit around and consume content as much as I'm just in the world. So I made that choice on purpose. I could have been an attorney if I wanted to, but, you know what I mean? I'm a musician and a personal trainer because I like to live in the world and play jams and keep my stress where it needs to be for my health. You know what I'm saying? But, like, the music, on the other hand, has been perplexing my whole life because I have the same problem in music that I have to get the best musicians and let them we have to do whatever everyone wants. We cannot do that. We have to do something new and differently, not that no one wants. And we have to always do that our whole career. And it's not a good strategy for making money. You know what I'm saying? But I cannot not do it. I cannot. We've had so many chances to sell out. We had Roadrunner offer us a big deal. We had Dino as our producer. They were going to, you know, probably put clown makeup on us or something. Then they told us we had to scream in the verse, sing in the chorus, bridge, new wave bridge. They wanted us to do, like, the song we have, House of Cards. 1,000 of those songs. And, we were just like, we could have made money and been famous or something doing that. But like, I can't do that. I have to change music. I have to make everyone do something new. And it hasn't really fully kicked in. I do have the respect of a lot of good musicians who understand what I'm trying to do, but I'm trying to create the post everything movement where I feel like the 2000s were genre
I love that.
destroyed. Like everyone wanted to be so much better than each other that they were getting narrowed down into these little like edgelord genres,
subgenres,
and everything became self-similar. And now it's kind of blurred where now we just have this pop crap that's like a mix of like alt country / rap / alternative rock that has like a bass beat and auto-tune, and that's like all music and it sounds exactly the same. And you know what I mean? It's like, it's gotten to the point where musicians are doing covers on the internet again. Like we're back in the bad part of the 80s, and it's time for a new Kurt Cobain moment, but it can't be the same kind of moment. These new kids now, they don't care about genres. They've heard every genre now. Like, you go to the court, play basketball, me right now in Antioch, 22-year-old black dude there, he might listen to Dillinger Escape Plan. It's not like the old days. Like, you know what I mean? People listen to whatever. They've been on YouTube going sideways through their interests, and everyone's got weird interests, and they listen to different types of genres. So it's time for the post.
And everything's so accessible.
Yeah, everything's accessible to everybody. So it's time for the post-everything movement. Stop trying to copy stuff that already exists and just make something new. It's actually very possible to make new things. Like, there's so many things that have never been tried. No one's ever done a Memphis rap meets ska, dark ska band. That's never happened. Go do it. If you're looking for something, if you're about to do some generic crap, do that. That's something new. I gave it to you. There you go. I don't have time to do that with myself. You know what I mean? There's like a million things that have never been tried, but people are only doing self-similar things that they know will work. And we're not in the corporate record label era anymore. We don't have to do that. You know what I mean? We can, in our algorithms, we can choose to listen to new things. We can choose as artists to put out new things and to stop doing this crap. And then I think it will happen anyway. I think people are going to say, you know what's going to kill it is AI. AI is going to kill crappy music because it's going to be better than you at that. And it's faster than you at that.
Sure.
But what it can't do is it can't be Kurt Cobain and have all your parents get divorced at the exact same time because they just legalized a no-fault divorce in Washington State. You can't do that as an AI. You can't have your parents get divorced and then one of your parents neglect you or something for 15 years, and then you go out and write Smells Like Teen Spirit. AI cannot do that. AI can copy Smells Like Teen Spirit and write Smells Like Teen Spirit number 2, but it can't write number 1. And so if you can't be AI as a musician, it's because you weren't creative. It's because you were relying on auto-tune, because you were relying on quantizing your beats, because you were relying on triggers, because you were relying on all type of, and you were not creative in the first place. I feel like AI, if you're creative, makes it even easier because now some of the that you can't afford because you're not a multi-billionaire and because your project is not going to be popular because you don't give if it's popular, you can still get some degree of high-level effects and things on there cheaply and easily where you would have had to hire some crazy producer or something. Because there's about to be AI that can like quantize your vocals for you or do things that are editing kind of tools that are not even compositional at all that are going to be great. And the compositional tools are going to be so bad compared to a human that no one will want to listen to that shit. You know what I'm saying? You can already see now most of YouTube is written by ChatGPT on the scripts. And so they all say, all like, it isn't this, but it is this. And they're all like, there's little ChatGPT isms that they say over and over again, like everything is warm or, they have these little certain words they use, quiet, make everything quiet. They have the little terms they use that you can see constantly happening and you immediately hear it and you're like, oh, this sucks. That's going to start happening more with music. You're going to find most of your little like knocked loose number 3 is going to be kicked aloft is going to be AI, and then people are going to be like, okay, we can't do copycat bands anymore. We're going to have to figure out something that the AI can't think of. We're going to have to stay one step ahead of the AI, and the way you stay one step ahead of the AI is make something that doesn't exist because it can only copy it that already exists. You know what I mean? That's why I think you'll see a trend away from glassy sort of electronic sounds and towards tube amps, towards out of key singing on purpose, towards vibrato that goes out of key, bending notes out of key, stuff that you can't do in this digital era is going to become cool again. Here's one way of checking it. All of y'all, go right now, pull up a tape recorded 90s Memphis rap Don't do it right now because you'll mess up our whole deal. But like after this is over, pull up some 90s Memphis rap that was recorded on a tape with uncompressed vocals. A good place to find it is like the Sticky O2 channel on YouTube. Listen to that nasty tape Memphis rap made by broke college kids putting their microphone up with no compression up to a weather channel to get their beat and putting an 808 under it and then like rapping with absolutely no compression. Listen to it right now. First, listen to AI music and then listen to that Memphis rap. That Memphis rap sounds so good right after you've listened to AI. That tape is so warm. They're out of key. The compression is their vocals are all over the place. It sounded pure bad in the 90s. You know what I mean? It was just like, it was bad. It was like poor quality equipment. But now no one's heard that sound. It's a sound. It sounds really cool, especially when you've just heard AI, because this is like actual rapping about they committed with bad, you know what I mean? This is the opposite of AI. It's like bad quality. It's so raw and real and authentic and pure. And it just sounds good now because I think the AI has made that crystal clear sound like people will want to hear tube amps and all that. It's going to come back.
Well, the thing that always used to piss me off, and definitely living in Nashville, is that at least amongst musicians and engineers, I always rode down the middle. Analog stuff is cool, but I like digital stuff too. Digital beats analog in some ways. Analog beats digital in some ways. I think we should be able to safely navigate those two things reasonably. But my experience in Nashville is not that. It was either you were like an analog person or a digital person. Even when it came to bands, like there were some bands that were cool with the early iterations of playing to backing tracks, Axe effects, amp modelers. And then there were bands that we played with, and my bands included, that are like, no, none of that. We're just doing real amps, raw sound, no click track. You know.
In my opinion, like one thing, my voice, I've sang over tube amps, and I've kind of built my voice. My band is as loud as an airplane taking off, and I sometimes scream, sometimes sing. Like I was kind of early in the scream singing thing. And so it was like, I developed a voice that now kind of sounds bad over digital music because it's got a lot of texture. I feel like if you have like a more clean, clear voice, it sounds great over like digital music. But if you have like a, you know, like a little bit of a, put some balls in your, you know, you jump some shit up in there where you got a little texture to it. It kind of like sounds like shit if it's not a tube amp. And it's kind of like the same reason because the tube amp kind of has a fingerprint that's left on the music. Whereas this digital music doesn't have any of that. It's just like pure music. And, just to me, I feel like music is cool and everything for backgrounds, but if you're like actually paying attention to the music, it's more about the expression and the, you know what I mean? So it's like, for me, if I'm singing and I'm getting real into it, I'm going out of key, dude. That was the note. You know what I mean? That was the correct note.
Dude, we didn't, like, honestly, the general listener had no, like, listen to recordings from the 80s to the beginning of when recordings were made. There's basses are out of tune, singers are flat, like there's all sorts. The drummer isn't exactly locked into a click, and we were just okay with
some
that.
Some of the greatest bands and songs ever are wildly out of key. Red Hot Chili Peppers ain't never been in key. In Vogue is always either sharp or flat. The whole band, you know what I mean? Like it's still awesome as fuck.
Yeah, I don't understand
cannot sing
how
the same note twice on purpose. It's not something he can do. You know what I mean? But it doesn't matter. He's sick.
And it's like, you know, within 10 years, within the span of 10 years time is like, that was okay. And then it moved straight to auto-tune. Like everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be locked to a click. And again, like I'm not on that because I've worked in live events. That was like my main source of income when I first moved to New York. And I saw tons of great shows with bands that played with backing tracks for whatever they were trying to do. It was sick.
It's still cool. I'm with you there. I'm like, I hit on things, but I hit on them in a moment to try and make a point when it comes to music because I think people get too trendy and because of the commercial side of it and the like getting laid side of it, like you just want to pander and stuff and everybody kind of wants to pander and everyone has low self-esteem in music and they don't believe in themselves. So they're liable to like for themselves out for a small record deal that doesn't even make money or whatever. So it's like when you're in an industry like that where everyone is willing to work for free just for validation and they're willing to literally put themselves out and they have no artistic like ethos to it. It's like they're forcing me to be a villain. Like I have to come out and make something else because it's just like, I can't Like, there's no other way for me to make something because y'all have already made all this other crap. I can't do that again. You know, so I have to make something else. So it's like, you know, so I push away from the trends that are happening when I feel like a trend is getting too much. You know what I mean? It's even with words. People start saying a word, and it's like, oh, this word just came out, and everybody's trying to say it. Oh, I hate that. That is so cringe to me. It's a brand new word, dude. First of all, if you're not, like my daughter who's 5, do it. If you're 5 years old, new word came out, and you want to use it, do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yours, all yours.
Grown-ass adult, and you're trying to be like, oh, I'm going to find a way to say, what's one of the new ones that's out? Like,
one of my personal favorites, this was unexpected, serving or like is now in America becoming more acceptable
that one back?
to say. Yeah. Like, you know, for a while that was pretty taboo here, but like it's a whole thing to say if somebody like really looks good or has attitude, they're serving. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, that is a pretty, you know, it's still new, so it's not, that one's not been to the point of, you know, everyone or unalived or whatever you're supposed to say on the internet. You can beep that one.
Yeah, sure.
Don't want an advertiser to run away from you or anything, but alive, do it. I just say that jokingly. I'm not trying to conflate R and M, but
yeah. YouTube's already gonna hate this, so yeah, don't even worry about it. Don't even worry. We're not gonna offend any corporate sponsors, so it's not a big deal.
Boom. If you ain't got it, you ain't got it.
I just it to me, I've kind of been the same way. Like I don't watch shows when they come out. I don't watch movies when they come out. I usually don't even listen to records right when they come out. I let some time. I let the hype die down, and then I approach it from a completely blank slate, like uninfluenced by anything.
That's how I do the shooting videos. You know, like when there's somebody's just got shots a bunch of people and they partially on bad angle video. I do the same thing. I'll wait a couple months to come out with a take because I've been burnt.
Well, it's just I'm like just generally resistant to things that become popular.
Yeah, too fast.
I don't know. I'm just generally, and it all seems too much like a scam.
Me too. Granted, I will initially resist, but if it's actually good, I'll let it happen. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
You know, I did that to Turnstile, right? There's no denying Turnstile as a band. Like, they're a unique, cool band that has a cool sound. You know what I mean? It just was so popular so fast initially. I was like, this probably sucks, but
can't trust this at all.
To a few songs, I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't suck. Like, honestly, it is. I could see exactly why people are into that. I honestly think their Turnstile, like that direction of hardcore, is my evidence is why I think LWID is stock is on the rise, because I think we are kind of more from the area of hardcore that they were. Not,
yeah, like
we're less. They're more consonant and conciliatory. They're friendlier. We're more like the heel version of that. But we did use a lot of like major key harmonies with like muddy dissonance, which one of the things that's hurt us the most is that we are doing something long play when it comes to music. We're kind of doing the shudder to think thing where you have like contrast in your music. So you have like a foreground that's maybe dissonant and a background that's got big sweeping major key harmonies, and you got about 13 notes in your chord there. You know what I mean? Like, we do a lot of that, and a lot of people don't understand that. They think it's like bad. They think it's like out of key or something. So if you like go back and listen to Shudder to Think, they're like kind of the main super innovators of that notion. And even now they're so unfairly unpopular for how awesome they are and how undeniable they are. Like, their shows are just nothing but like reporters from the top music magazines and like famous musicians, and there's like 300 people there. You know what I mean? Because people just have a hard time following contrast in music. They can totally see it in a picture. You know, you got a ugly dark background and a stark little white icon in the center or something. Yeah, that's just totally normal in music, but I mean in art or in movies or anything other than music. And I just want tonally to bring, you know, larger number of notes into chords that are not just consonant, that have some jazz elements to them that allow you to like say multiple things in the same sentence with the music, right? So you have the sludgy, like we have this song Fox Eats TV Ishmael, and it's like sludgy and all the guitar and the bass and the guitar are playing 1/2 step up from each other. Just total pure illegal notes. And they're all bending at the same time. It's just absolute garbage, stoner doom noise. And then I am just like, Grandma says the land you tilled my hand is meant to, it's like huge harmonies on there. And it's just, that's the wrongest thing you could do to that track, right? In a way. But it actually is like, it makes the sweeping beauty of the harmony stand out because you have this sludgy awfulness in the thing. It's just
the stark contrast.
You just have to listen to it long enough for your ears to separate those two things. You can't listen to it one pass and like it. That's the problem you run into with that style, right? But it's just over time, eventually people are going to find out. You know what I mean? That there's another option because their ears are going to get bored and they're going to have to hear that. Like you hear that accidentally happen in mashups. Mashups accidentally have things that are out of key with each other that works. And so I think the younger ears are going to hear this and they're going to be okay with it. And, that's going to have to take some time. Everything Look What I Did was long play. We've had so many opportunities to like make a musical decision that would win us immediate fans that we turned down because I just really, really, really am trying to be like the Melvins where like year 50, everyone's like, oh my God, you guys really did it. We've decided now we get it. You know what I mean? You've done enough different things the right way, the long enough at the right time that we can now look back and see this correctly. That's kind of what happened to the Melvins. You know what I mean?
Well, and there are a million examples. I guess maybe not even a million, but at least the bands that always, one of the reasons I dug Look What I Did so much is just because it sounded unique. It didn't sound like other bands. Like there were things in Look What I Did that reminded me of other bands. Dillinger Escape Plan, Glassjaw, like also two of my other favorite bands. But you did your own thing. It was your own way on principle. Like even I don't know this psychology, but you explaining it does make a lot of sense, and it absolutely makes sense as to why I loved it so much because it was just that. How do we not do what everyone wants us to do? And it still sounds good. And it still is like this, unsettling exploration of your emotions as you're listening to it. But, I also am tempted to agree with you that the trend is you're seeing it too a lot in the younger generations digging like new metal.
Right.
Like you're really seeing there's like a very end.
New metal is unfairly
absolutely
bombed.
100% agree with you that rock, heavy music, when I was a kid, you were the outcast. And that's not the case anymore. You can be a mainstream kid at your school and listen to heavy music and no one's going to judge you. They're going to listen to it with you. They're a little more, maybe that's the internet, maybe thanks TikTok or whatever, but that's definitely a thing. And any band that I look up to or that I respect the work that they did, they were bands that they just never did what they were told to do. And the bands that are able to make that successful in whatever way success, however they define success, that's winning.
Yeah.
Not getting a record label. I also lived in Nashville. In Nashville, people say it's Music City. It's music business.
Yeah.
And I saw all of that on full display. I'm sure you did as well.
But to that point, though, Look What I Did. Okay. Like my first band ever, Evan Brewer was in it. He was in so many great projects and whatnot. And then I had Brent Coleman and Patrick Dampier were in it. They had a band, Paper Rival, that got a major label deal. They went on tour with 30 Seconds to Mars. They were on The Tonight Show. Then Miles McPherson joined our band. He was later in Paramore, Kelly Clarkson's band, like a million things. Now bear in mind, this is my band members I've had by the time I'm 21. Right? So this is who is around when you were born in Nashville. This is your friend group. You know what I mean? I'm friends with the Scruggs family, who has a wing of the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Because this is just like a small town. Everybody plays music, right? So, and everyone is good at music.
Really
when we moved to LA to try to replace Miles, it failed. Miles didn't come with us when we moved to LA and got a record deal. And we were just pretending we had a drummer. And when we got our deal, we were just like thinking we would find one. And nobody could play. Everyone looked like they could play, but they couldn't actually play. And so Miles had to come back out and move out there because we didn't, we'd already got ourselves a record deal. And off of his drumming, and we couldn't find anybody else that could play his drumming at all. Now, I mean, Jake can play his drumming, he kills it, but we got the collective of Look What I Did has been packed with many stars over the years, but part of that's just because I'm a Nashvillean, and that's like who's around, you know what I mean? Like, these are people that were at my high school and stuff. It wasn't like, you know what I mean? I went and got on the Craigslist or anything. I mean, these were like just my already friends that, you know what I mean, I already had. So Nashville is sick when it comes to, if you want to make an awesome, cool band and ignore the money and all that. And I'll tell you what, right now, a lot of awesome musicians will come lose money with me. They'll still do it. They'll still do it. They'll still come lose money with me. They know they'll sell next to nothing, but they know that it'll be sick as. And so that's like still the way it works in Nashville. There's still like people that are fighting a good fight and that are not just all about money. You know what I mean? There's a lot of great players here, but the industry here is just a magnet.
It's oppressive. It's oppressive for sure.
But it's just like we have a bunch of people write the songs and we take these like pretty people and tune them up and pretend they have these feelings that they didn't really have. And they'll make some like kind of soft rock, alternative hip hop thing and call it country, and then Johnny Cash will be spinning just in his grave like a drill going straight down to, you know what I mean? Like, but it is what it is. It is the corrupt in that sense that it is, but music industry is corrupt. Like making money off of that, every incentive, the incentives are people who struggle to get laid, trying to get laid, which is not a good incentive to be in a business or an art. People who want to be cool and be friends with bands become people at labels that take all the money that's supposed to go to bands, right? This is the industry. The industry is a bunch of people who are vampires trying to scam and screw the money out of artists who themselves are insecure and easy to manipulate. That's like what the music industry is. And it's like the most brutal, offensive, like brutalizing industry of them all.
My favorite quote about it is Hunter S. Thompson, and I pulled it up. Is the music business is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. There's also a negative side.
yeah, it is.
And it sums it up pretty flawlessly.
Very accurate, I would say, at a minimum, very accurate, because that is like what you deal with. I mean, it's a lot of, and honestly, I think it's gotten worse as it's decentralized because of the algorithms. I think it might have been better if MySpace had never died, because MySpace allowed you to directly post and it wasn't like manipulating the algorithm. And then bands were thriving. It was actually kind of okay that you couldn't sell CDs anymore because of MySpace. But then when MySpace died, Facebook buries music. Music can only spread on YouTube, and YouTube, you have no way to organize your fans and socially connect with them. So it's like there's no real way to make money off of the fact that you recorded and made music and videos and things as a band. You just have to like try to sell merch on tour, which tour is getting expensive to a point where it doesn't make money, even if you're selling great merch, for you're a big band. So, if none of that works, the industry won't, it's not going to last like it is now. We're headed for a Nirvana moment, man. I want to be a part of it in some way. Maybe I'll inspire the person that does it. Maybe we'll put a track out that starts it or something, but something's got to change, kind of like it did in 91, where like just meaningful, real people with feelings and something to say take over the technology, because the technology has already killed it. Like, I feel like AI, everyone complaining about AI, like AI was already here, dude, 5 years ago in music. Like none of y'all can play the shit you're saying you can play right now live, in person, live. None of y'all can do it 100%. Facts. Like, you can't just go in there and play. Like, honestly, I don't know how to use I'm not a Luddite. I was a hacker when I was 11, and I got my computer took away by the NSA because I created a batch file virus and it had damaged some computers at businesses. So I'm not one of those guys, but I kind of, with music, I have been a Luddite. I sing and dance. I dance and sing. And people record me on their computers. They tell me what to do in terms of like, if that was a good take or not. I don't even care. I just sing and dance, write songs and sing and dance. I don't use technology on music. So I don't know how to do that. That's not what I do. I do the old school. I was started off, you had to know what you were doing before you went to the studio, because you had 4 hours and then like they would do whatever they did after that. You know what I mean? It wasn't much editing. There was no tuning. So you had to be very good to even record. Like you had to practice for weeks to record. And like now people make the song up as they're going along and they're not even necessarily able to play it because they're assembling it. They can't really play, you know? And it's kind of like, that was already AI in my opinion. Just, I mean, people won't take me for that take, but, you have a right to, you know what I mean? I'm the music, I'm a hot take guy. I'm trying to stimulate radical change. I'm like a woke, whatever, the music version of woke, annoying guy that's throwing shit at cops. I'm like that at music.
Always have been. Yeah, always have been. You honestly, you're like at this point, you're like the troll of Nashville's music. Like you're lurking in the corner of every club waiting to snatch somebody. If you haven't seen a Look What I Did show and you live in Nashville, are you even a Nashvilleian? Like, do you even live there if you haven't seen Look What I Did?
If you haven't at least played a show with us or been in Look What I Did at this point, if you haven't either been a member of or played a show with us, you're probably not really from here. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think one of the interesting things too about the landscape that is emerging now is, you know, even back then, like you're really going against the grain to try and do heavy music in general, but heavy music, that's really hard. Now, I think there's just so many other potential niches of people that would be into it. And again, like the not to bring it back to Knock Loose, but they were on Jimmy Kimmel. That was like a huge moment to get a heavy band like that on Jimmy Kimmel.
It doesn't make it reasonable for any band that's heavy, you know, once you've busted that door open. And I do think that was a big problem we had, is that when we first came out, we were really, really kind of too heavy. And then because I was singing, like we had some of the earliest Gent songs ever, right? Because I'll tell you how Gent happened. I mean, I'm friends with the people that really were a part of that movement, right? But like around that time, Meshuggah was killing, dude. Everybody was loving Meshuggah, dude. And so were we. And so we had a couple tracks on our album where like maybe Miles and Coley got a little cranked up, and they kind of over Meshuggah'd it, in my opinion. Yeah. Instrumentally,
they went full Swedish. Yeah, full
and
Swedish.
So I was like, you know, and it was particularly our songs, Ultimate Clean Home Fitness Machine and Appomattox Whorehouse. Those two songs, where I just heard a lot of Meshuggah sounding. So I was like, I'm not screaming on at all. I'm like singing because I don't want to sound like Meshuggah right now, like everybody is doing right now. This sounds like this is going to be a trendy song if I do that. So I'm going to sing over it. And now it's totally cool. Cause it's like, I'm not saying it was a rip off. Like the track is still sick, but it wasn't enough different from what was coming out without singing over it. And I think just like, you know, your other bands they were doing the same thing at the same time. Maybe they just had the same idea. They were coming through it from a Dream Theater place and they liked Meshuggah and they were like, I'm going to sing over it. See what that sounds like. You know what I mean? Whereas for me, it was more like, fuck y'all, I'm going to sing over this shit because I know you want me to scream. But, you know, it was like that. The problem was there was no audience for Gent because they didn't have a word for it. So we weren't able to really get that song over at the time. Gent was 2 years later, right? So we had a lot of songs like that. We've had songs that mix post-hardcore and black metal. That's like a thing now. Or shoegaze and black metal. We've done that so many times back in our early records. Or stoner doom with prog rock or pop. We've done that. Like, you know what I mean? It's all type of shit that like now would be kind of like if you could make a band off of that, right? Like our song Appomattox Whorehouse is kind of, in a way, yacht rock meets kind of like mathcore in a way where you could make a yacht rock stoner mathcore band and call it Titanic. And that would be, right now, that would be the biggest ever. Think about it. If you had a band called Titanic and you came out there and it was kind of like Mastodon meets a yacht rock, right? Tell me that wouldn't be the biggest band ever immediately. You know what I mean? See, I'm not doing that kind of because that to me is too candy store level for me. Yeah. But if somebody else, somebody out there wants to do that band, I'm not going to sue you. I won't sue you. I'll let you have it for free because I guarantee you it's a gimmick that will work. If you can just make it big and stonery, warm riffs, and then just go into a yacht rock smooth, a lot of harmonies. Because yacht rock's about to come back too. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, a sax solo.
Yeah, a little sax, sure. Dude. Yakuza, sickest band ever. Heavy stoner with the sax. I saw them with Burnt by the Sun.
Bill Murray. I don't know if you are.
Yeah, Bill Murray. Yeah, they were running a sax in there too. They're kind of influenced maybe they're like the new generation influenced by all these things. You know what I mean? That's who I want to speak to. I want to get the Bill Murrays of the world to consider maybe blending a muddy chord with a 4-part harmony that's consonant and major key, right? I'm wanting to see if I can get those people to think like that, like get that crazy. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, it's awesome that they brought sax into like prog metal and type of shit. You know, that's uncommon.
Well, wasn't the founder of that, the founder of Bill Murray, wasn't he in Attack?
Yeah, they were. Let's be real, that was kind of a corny crabcore band.
Yeah, for sure.
They were kind of in the scene that we were touring in. It was like we toured with like Drop Dead Gorgeous. They were like fashion core. There's like a lot of like the sassy metalcore with like little aesthetics going on right then. You know what I mean? And they were a part of that. But yeah, I think that he matured into that, but Attack was not quite on the same level.
Yeah, definitely not. We're talking a bit about Nirvana moments, and I think I definitely want to make sure we spend a little bit of time talking about Nirvana and Kurt Cobain. Yeah, so I never knew you to be a real conspiratorial person. I always kind of knew you as a person who would debate the conspiratorial talking points, but not necessarily get into it. So I was really stoked to see you bringing this up. I guess this isn't necessarily a
conspiracy type of thing easily, because I'm a skeptic both ways. And a lot of those have sketchy information. So you don't have a lot of real information. And some of it begs belief. Like, I don't believe in conspiracies that are effective, right? Because people are not that good at that. You know, for the most part. And there's some that are effective, but they're partially effective and they usually get figured out and stuff most of the time. But more is explained by corruption and accident than like intent, right? But the Kurt Cobain one, like, okay, my dad had that radio show. And so I was, contacted by Tom Grant in like 1996 on the internet, which I was already on, right? So he contacted me and he's like, hey, I want to get on your dad's show. I've got information about Kurt Cobain's death. It's mysterious. And here's all of my files. He just sent me all of his files via email, right?
Sick.
So I've had years ago, I've listened to him talk to Courtney Love on the phone for like several hours worth of time. I was really just poured through it all and really studied out of it. Now, there was one level of information back then, right? And that's evolved. Back then, it was more like the inconsistencies with what Tom Grant, private investigator, was one of multiple private investigators that Courtney hired to try and hunt for Kurt when he left that rehab that he was in shortly after an overdose that he had. That was inherently suspicious because it was an overdose on Courtney Love's roofies, which also erased your memory of what happened. So we don't know exactly whether that was actually self-taken, because it could have easily been taken by somebody else giving it to you and giving you a dose bigger than you thought, and you wouldn't remember. So that's what happened that day. So that was the motivation for him to go into that rehab. Once he escapes the rehab, Courtney contacts the private investigator, Tom Grant. Tom Grant is one of multiple private investigators she's contacted. He's been hired before to prove as an alibi for that happened. So he was suspicious of that from the beginning. And a lot of things Courtney said to him were suspicious to him. So he goes, he's looking for Kurt, and then Kurt turns up dead. He doesn't buy it. He has this whole set of facts. I was given that, right? Now, when I moved to LA later on, this girl I know, this is part 2 of my evolution in the Kurt Cobain situation, right? This girl I know, Jax, who worked at K-Rock as a screener, said that Courtney Love called in and that she gave her number and that they're now best friends, right? And she was one of those girls that love to drop names like LA do. And I find that so LA, annoying. Yeah, most people that I cannot help it. I was like, you're full of shit. You're full of shit. You're not called to Courtney Love, whatever. And she's like, no, look, here's the number. I'm like, yeah, here's the number, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, my dude, Ryan Johnson, he like hits call and throws it at me, right? And so I catch it and then, hello, it's Courtney Love, dude. And so I'm like, oh. So we were looking for a drummer because Miles didn't come with us to LA. We have a record deal coming and we don't have a drummer. So I'm just quickly thinking on my feet. I'm like, I got your number from LA Weekly for a drummer. I just, what do I say? And then she's like, who put you up to this? I'm like, excuse me? Where's your accent from? It's like, I'm from Nashville. She's like, did Ryan Adams put you up to this? Which, bear in mind, he's from Texas. He's like a country guy from Texas. I'm like, excuse me? And she's like, Ryan Adams thinks he can feud with me. He's not like Marilyn Manson or something. He's not big enough to feud with me. You know what I mean? And then my thought now is like, I'm not going to acknowledge that she's Courtney Love because I shouldn't know that based on what I've told her, right? So I'm just going to keep playing this conversation as if I'm really the guy who just called. So she rants a while and I don't really respond to any of it. And then she's just like, ask me more questions. She's like, well, what's your band? I tell her about my band. So she gives me the number to the drummer of Luscious Jackson, who's currently playing with Juliette Lewis and the Licks, to be our drummer.
Oh, wow.
Which would not work, but I just was like humoring her at this point. She gives me the number to, bear in mind, she thinks I'm wrong number. This is when she's on a lot of methamphetamine and she's like 90 pounds. Bear in mind, she's like 6 foot tall. This is right when she's losing custody of Frances Bean for threatening to kill her boyfriend, right? In front of her. So this is all the context of what's happening in her life at this time. I happen to know now looking back. But she then gives me the number to that guy. Which was the one who produced Nevermind? The producer that produced Nevermind.
Was that Albini?
No. There's a guy that I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. She gave me his number. She told me to talk to him.
Butch Vig.
She said, call him and talk to him about Michael Stipe. Tell him I gave him the number and just call him and talk to him about Michael Stipe and get him going. And she said, after 2 hours of that, he'll do whatever you want. She literally told me this kind of stuff. I'm a person that called her off the phone randomly, doesn't know her. You know what I mean? She starts telling me about the thing with Frances. Bear in mind, I keep saying, excuse me. Anytime she talks about celebrities and weird shit, I'm kind of like acting dumb as to who she is. And she's talking about how she threw a brick through. They say I threw a brick through my boyfriend's window, but it's my window. It's not his window. Like, cause she paid for it. Like, I'm like, that's not how that works in my mind. I'm like, I don't know if a man could make that argument if he had like been abusing his girl and he's like, well, this is my house. So if I want to throw a brick through the window, I can't. No, you actually can't. But of course she lost custody of her kid over it. So that's probably why. But, she was kind of, like really showing me a lot of weird manipulative stuff. And I kind of had the feeling like, she kind of takes these people that are in the music industry who are maybe below her level and she kind of feeds them contacts and blows them up and gives them money and invites them over and then tells them to go kill her boyfriend and beat up her boyfriend. So, I mean, I can't prove that. So don't come at me legally for that. Well, but that's just, I feel like I was sliding towards that. I probably could have said, hey, can I come over? Because she was talking to me for like 45 minutes. And eventually I just got off the phone because I didn't have anything else to say to her. You know what I mean? And it was like, I just started thinking, man, that's the craziest person I've ever talked to in my life, dude. And like, so then that kind of, I started thinking about how she was, the things she said on those calls with Tom Grant, the way she was like talking about her boyfriend, the violence she was doing with her boyfriend, like the way she was willing to tell me how to manipulate people, that she was probably very right. Like you probably could call Butch Vig, by the way, if anyone is on the edge of a record deal with him or
I tried it. It works. He loves Michael Stipe.
You know, you're talking about Michael Stipe, get him going, he might do your record. So, but you mean she had a real good vocabulary for like intentional like manipulation. That was pretty crazy. And then now we fast forward and Joe Burns has come forward. And some people that are close friends of Kurt who were claiming to have been there when he died are coming forward, and there's a really clear storyline surrounding a possibility of this guy Dylan Carlson, who's in the band Earth, and Mark Lanigan from Screaming Trees, dude, possibly having worked together to overpower him, according to Joe Burns, inject him maybe with some heroin, and then they go up into the greenhouse with him, and then something happens, and there's a shot, and then they leave looking queasy and making vague sort of quasi threats about, you know, kind of like, and Joe Burns was like hooked on drugs and he was kind of like hanging around the house. And I think he was like kind of like halfway wanting to keep the drugs going, but also kind of like halfway not wanting to admit what just happened, because if he did, he might be, you know what I'm saying? That's kind of how it works when you're in criminal situations. If you know how to like not pretend like you didn't see something, you might just be allowed to like chill and be cool. And I think like he left and like maybe Courtney and stuff didn't really know he was like one of the the people that were there, and she didn't properly like pay him off, and he probably wasn't willing to be, and then like he probably just ate at him until now. If what he said is true, then I could see that being how it plays out. Now it's possible he's just a drug seeker trying to come up with a gimmick that allows him to pull a little bit of money. That could totally be real. But there's starting to be numerous corroborations going on here between like also a bunch of female callers that had called into Unsolved Mysteries saying the exact same storyline. Other people implicating Mark and Dylan in different ways. And then like, their stories are very vastly full of lies that are definite lies. Like we have other eyewitnesses. Like there's a guy, Dylan Carlson claims he was with Kurt when they went to the airport to drop Kurt off, and that Kurt had shotgun shells that he left with the taxi driver as a result of that. But that definitely didn't happen. That guy, now you can read his interviews. He's like, I've never had any person in the car but Kurt, and he left the shotgun shells with me, and there's nobody with him. Definitely. I remember it because it was like, he was like, I was trying to get the bullets back to him, and then he became dead. So it was like, whoa, it's a very memorable moment in his life. He like, when he drops Kurt Cobain off the airport, he gives him shotgun shells, asks him to drop him off at his house. He failed to do that, felt guilty, and then found out he's dead on getting shot in the head with a shotgun 4 or 5 days later. So he's like doing interviews, and that contradicts Dylan Carlson's narrative that Dylan Carlson, it's like, why would you say these little lies? But one of the things is that there's a receipt in Kurt's pocket when he dies that shows Dylan bought the gun and the bullets, and that the bullets were bought separately after he'd come back because of the fact that those bullets never made it home, right? That they had bought that day or whatever, supposedly. And Kurt was actually shocked that the bullets were on him. Shocked, which means they were probably planning on it. He probably didn't know they were in his jacket. And part of that was so that it would look weird, like he would look unhinged. You know what I mean? Because now he's showing up to the airport with bullets. But it didn't happen that way. He found it before he went in the airport, gave it to the taxi driver. But imagine if they're about to allege he's committing suicide and he shows up at an airport with bullets.
With shotgun shells.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of factors. Now he goes to this rehab. He jumps the wall. Now Mark Lanigan has this song called something 2:30 a.m. on his final album right before he dies. It talks about Daddy's coming over the wall. Daddy's 2 states away. Daddy's coming home, and then he dies or whatever. That's like pretty much describing Mark Lanigan describing Kurt coming home, and then really in the song. There's a couple songs at the end of his career that, if it's true that he did kill him, it does seem like they're about it. They're like one that says, it's like to DRC, which is Dylan Carlson, and it's like, thanks for never telling about all the awful things that we did or whatever. You know what I mean? Like literally the lyrics. It's so up, man. It's so many things pointing at once. Like it could totally be not real, and it could just be a vast array of numerous coincidences. And it could just be that Courtney Love is normally violent to all of her boyfriends except Kurt. It could be that she threatened and actually did have Frances Bean's son. Not Frances Bean's. Frances Bean's first husband. They claimed it was a punk thing, but she had some dudes come and put him in the trunk and start driving off with him. But his actual roommate saw it and called the cops. And when the cops got there, they were able to trick him into it was like a punk thing. But they were going through a divorce, right? And so Courtney was mad that he had Kurt's guitar from the Unplugged and wanted to get that back. This was not a punk thing. It was a thug move to try and get the guitar back. And she got caught, but she was able to talk her way out of it, because with her, it's kind of like it was with Epstein and with Diddy, is that they have a thing they can pull on where if you criticize them, it's like you're against everyone that's like them, that they use to their advantage when they're unusually bad and there's no one like them. You know what I mean? There's no one that they represent. Epstein is not a part of any other group that he's technically a member of. Diddy is not a part of any other group he's technically a member of, and Courtney Love is similarly in the same. Even what we know about her, that's proven. The relentless of everyone she does, getting everyone controlled by giving them drugs, including her own daughter. Like she gives people drugs to get them hooked on drugs that they get through her as a manipulation tactic. These are like major tactics that would be, she's done violent crimes so many times in front of God and everybody. But like, I think what it is like you get into this weird place where you can kind of like Courtney, kind of like Hillary Clinton, where it's like you can just call everything a conspiracy theory anytime anyone says anything about you, and it neutralizes it immediately, And that's kind of what's been going on with Kurt. But what's funny is ever since Joe Burns came out, Courtney Love's tune has changed. She came out and said Kurt was. She came out and sent a thing to Candace Owens saying that Kurt was by the CIA or something, and that she had nothing to do with it. And that she also at the same time mentions that she was at the Haight-Ashbury Clinic, put through MK Ultra style CIA experiments with LSD, right?
Chaos stuff.
Which did happen. That's true. Her dad talked about that.
That is
book,
true,
right?
Yeah.
So, and that makes total sense to me that now that I was talking to a person on the phone who had been through MK Ultra, that makes so much more fucking sense. It's so nuts. And it's almost sad because it's not even your fault. I mean, it's not even her fault in a way. She was as a child, but at the same time, that's one of those things under the woke umbrella of like, because someone was as a child, we're going to let them for everyone. No. We have to realize like it's sad that it worked out that way, but I'm not saying she hurt everyone. We don't know for a fact. Everything's alleged, right? Some of these things are alleged. Some of them are also things that we've been proven
in terms of means and motive, she certainly had it. And what I don't think a lot of people respect is that even at that point in Nirvana's career, that was already $1 billion enterprise.
Right. You don't understand how much money that was.
Everyone could see the dollar signs, especially Courtney Love.
She also used drugs
you've ever seen
to manipulate the people in the house.
Yeah.
And there were amounts of money and drugs that you can't get in the world. There would be no other Kurt Cobain that could provide them with these levels of money. He had so much weird money. He could actually print. You know what Joe Burns said? That they would be run out of money because he could only get $500 a day out of his ATM. And if they wanted to go party and do more drugs, then Kurt would go get like 4-track demos and go like to a record store and just like sign it and then like print money by like just giving like drawing a picture and then giving it to a record store. They give him like $1,000 and they could go buy drugs with it or something. That was like kind of weird scenario he was in where he could just print money. And like, when you're around a guy like that and you're addicted to that level of drugs, and then now he's saying he's going to quit Nirvana, he's going to move away, him and Chris he's going to divorce you, and he's going to start dating your bass player who he fell in love with while he was writing your album with her, and who she also quits the band and dies of a heroin overdose in the presence of Courtney Love a month after she quits her band, while also being somebody who is rumored to be trying to steal her husband. You know what I mean? So like, instead of she becoming Kurt's ex and baby mama while her album comes out, and he quits Nirvana and becomes an acoustic career, and then he starts marrying Kristen Pfaff to where she comes out, sells maybe 50,000 records, doesn't really isn't also ran in our pop culture. But this way, no! Now she's the Nancy from Sid and Nancy. Now she's the queen of rock and roll because the king of rock and roll died in her arms. You know what I mean? That's the way it was perceived. And it's like, at the same time, people don't realize that she was in front of Kurt claiming she's going to fuck every one of his friends. He was like so done with her and trying to get away with her and avoiding her, and didn't go see her when he left the rehab in LA for a reason, because he was divorcing her. You know what I mean? Like, and was reaching out to his attorney for divorce proceedings. That same attorney thought he didn't kill himself for a while until now she's changed her mind, but she also works for Courtney now. You know what I mean? So like, there's just so many of those details that it's like, come on, man, we got to just look at it. We just got to have some real authorities. You know what I mean? You have actual authority. Because like, when it happened, even their own police chief said, we didn't really look at it. We walked in, he has all these lyrics, his head's blown off. We're like, case closed. We didn't really look too hard. You know what I mean? We didn't really see a motive. And then they didn't realize there was 6 hard drug users living in that house constantly, and that were there the whole time.
That were doing whatever Courtney Love told them.
And they also
she was literally puppet mastering all
and they
of
were
them.
set up in a house that had like a jam room, unlimited food, and drugs. And they were just living there and having the heaven of life that would be for like a 20-year-old punk rock kid. And then being told like, all this is going to end and you're going to be dope sick to the point of possibly dead tomorrow if Kurt leaves. Now that means when Kurt arrives home from that facility, his tires are slashed in his car in the garage. They slashed his tires because they didn't want him to leave. They're told if he leaves, and this is something you can hear Courtney say to Tom Grant in the recordings he has, is he says, now, I'm going to need this much money if we do this when I go up to Seattle. And she's like, look, if Kurt leaves me, I've got nothing. But if you find him, you can have whatever you want. She was basically like, I don't have money unless you find him. And if you find him, I have unlimited money. So I can pay you literally anything you want. She actually verbatim said that. So I'm sure she's saying that to the people back at the house. If he runs off, we're not going to have any money. I'm not going to be able to feed y'all. I'm not going to be able to pay you any money. You can go get drugs and you're going to be dope sick right now. You know what I mean? That's like a reality that was happening in that house to everyone there. There's a girl who was there the week with Callie DeWitt, who was like the nanny. She came, I think he was just trying to like that week, and she was going to fly in and she was going to fly out. But the problem is she flew in and then suddenly he didn't have any money to fly her back out because all his credit cards got cut off, right? Because the whole thing was starting to go down. And she has this testimony. They put it to music on this one channel in a way that's really interesting, but it's like, her testimony is that everything got real dark and weird, and that Callie was trying to avoid the phone, that Courtney was just calling him round the clock and he was trying to avoid the phone. They ran into Kurt. He seemed totally normal. And then like sudden, and that she just had the feeling somebody was going to die. And that she said that when she left, she threw up because she thought Callie was going to die. She didn't know who was going to die, but she knew somebody was going to die. And it wasn't her sense that somebody was going to kill themselves. It was more like somebody was going to be, was the feeling that she's describing when you listen to her narrative, right? Now she leaves like 3 or 4 days before, or 2 days before the day when he supposedly is killed, right? I think, or something like that. It's because her dad flew her back to New York. She was like, got to the point of admitting to her dad that she was flying downhill here. I need to get the fuck out. You know what I mean? That's how strongly they were trying to get her out of there. And, you know, if you watch all the little narratives that cross into this, it's not the simple, clean thing that Kurt was just at home depressed and it was just the fame was too much for him and he couldn't handle the fame. This wasn't really a fame related. Actually, there was people that talked to him at the rehab said that he was worried about losing all of his fame. He wanted to take it down a notch, but not like lose all his fans. He wanted to like not be like, okay,
the most recognizable face in music for that
maybe
time.
the world. Like sure. He'd go to Indonesia and have weird children running up to him in Indonesia and stuff. It's too much. It's like the Twilight Zone. Like you go to the Walmart and 100% of the Walmart is turned to a meet and greet, like everywhere, 100% of the time. You can't go in public ever. Like that's where he was at. And so like he was trying to take it down a notch when you look at what he was telling people. He's like, I want to do more acoustic, do something more like the Unplugged, which unfortunately he thought that was going to make him smaller, but it probably wouldn't. But you know what I mean? He was saying he wanted to move to Georgia because he heard Michael Stipe said there's not really an industry of paparazzis there and that he could be more relaxed. And,
what, down to Athens? Was that the comparable scene at the time?
It was more like Georgia? Atlanta because Stipe had moved to Atlanta, and he was really connecting with Michael Stipe and he wanted to move down there and do a project with him, acoustic. That was going to be the next thing he does, right? He was talking about doing that with Michael Stipe at the time. And Kristen Pfaff was kind of like, supposedly he's, you know, these are what the narrative that's kind of formed around the many perspectives that have weighed in about that time frame, about what was going on. Some of them including his own family, like his uncle and other guys. Now, there is a lot of drama inside of the Kurt Cobain conspiracy theory world scene. It's a conspiracy theory scene. They're always full of like weird edgelords that are crazy as fuck. So
just like JFK.
Yeah, think of that. So we're going to have people that come in and blame it somehow on the Jews, or something that come in and somehow blame it on, something that doesn't make any sense. But they'll, on the same token, they turn against each other, and there's a lot of weird infighting I don't really partake in. I don't really care what journalist is good or bad. If they produce information that's useful one way or the other. So I don't really get into the drama, the behind the scenes of these little cliques and movements, but there is a lot of weird drama in that world. But a lot of it's because they're different opinions about what's true and what isn't, and people tend to use personal attack even in those communities and destroy each other over differences of opinion over what happened that are probably not provable one way or the other. In fact, those are the ones that people tend to fight the most over, the most unprovable, irrelevant. It's not really probably what we should focus on because we don't have any real facts or whatever. That's why conspiracy sometimes stays in the basement. You know what I mean? Epstein was one of those where we had so many bad facts that it kind of like people put too many things in the bucket to where kind of Epstein was allowed to operate. They're like, oh, it's a mix of this and that and these and that. And then it's like, when you put so many things in there, nobody believes it. And now he can just openly operate. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be focused to take down a thing that's been made into a conspiracy theory that's actually fact. Like, you have to be very focused on what is factual and prove that and then just move from there. Like, right now, they did have a new autopsy, or not a new autopsy, but a new finding in terms of that it's a homicide, right, by a new medical examiner. That is some factual stuff that they're working with, right? And then we have the testimonies that we have. So what we can't do is place Courtney anywhere near there or place her saying anything in particular to somebody or whatever. It's probably not possible to like reasonably suggest she definitely probably wasn't there. She was probably in Los Angeles when it happened, right? But is she on the horn with everybody who's at the house? Yes, that's proven. You know what I mean? Is she frantically on the horn, calling them all the time? Now, granted, her official narrative, her husband is run off and is about to kill himself, although he didn't say he was about to kill himself, so there's no reason to believe that. You know what I mean? Like, so that in itself is kind of strange. Like, he hasn't really specifically in any different, all kind of times where Kurt Cobain flips out and runs off and goes off by himself. He's kind of like one of those type of guys. You know what I mean? He's like, people don't understand. He was in like 6 fights during the Nirvana era of his life, which was 3 years. Like, there's 6 different fights that you can, 3 of them on video, and 3 of them, like, other people mentioned he got into a fight with somebody. One time he got in a fight with Chris Novoselic on the way to the airport in the case we're talking about, because Chris Novoselic actually thought he should go to rehab because Chris Novoselic didn't like Kurt's drug use, right? Everybody else was telling Kurt to go to rehab so that he would smooth over things with Geffen so they could keep using drugs on his money. But Chris really cared about him, right? So Kurt and Chris get into a fight on the way to the airport. Most people don't understand that Kurt Cobain is a 5'7", 120-pound fucker that will fight Chris Novoselic, who is 6'8" and like 210 pounds skinny, right? Like, that guy is probably got a 7'1" wingspan, and Kurt Cobain is willing to fight his ass. Kurt Cobain was a more intense person than people realize, and was not like a depressed, quiet. He was more like a funny, fixes cars, shoots guns, plays with guns all the time, but he's artsy and weird, right? But he's like kind of a slightly unhinged, sort of artsy man's man, and most people don't get that about his personality type, right? So it makes, he leans into the suicide narrative real easily with the sort of like the little mopey thing that people think of him like. But he was a person with a dark sense of humor who joked all the time, and most people thought of him as a jokester and like a funny guy. If you think about it, they were always taking the piss, always, in interviews, and you know what I mean? Like, they were not taking things real seriously because they were just having fun. Yeah. And like, I think there was kind of a way, that's something scary about, if you're in a band and you have $1 billion royalty portfolio, people can never reach the freedom level of that in their lifetime. But everyone around you actually probably can find a way now if failure. And then, you know, you make matters worse that suddenly you've got these billions associated with your name. You know what I mean? And everyone you're surrounded with is like an opportunistic 21-year-old drug addict. You know what I mean?
Great combination.
Who's addicted to the drugs that your lifestyle is providing to them. It's almost impossible to come out of that motherfucker alive. You know what I mean? Like, he was just in a game he didn't know he was playing because he didn't. I think Curtin had no idea his band could get that big. Even listening now, it doesn't make sense. Nirvana is a real sloppy kind of, you know what I mean? Like, I love it. It's one of the best bands ever. But I feel like somebody like me would see that, and the average person would never see that. I don't know if that, does that make sense to you? Like, I feel like they're just not a mainstream sounding band. They're like a weird, like, some of the shit is really not accessible, but like, it just hit the spot perfectly. And I think that was
at the right time,
unbelievable to him in a way that made it really hard for, like, enjoying that as a musician. Right. So I could see that, but people, I think, tried to take that artistic dissonance he was having and turn it into he's suicidal from it. You know what I mean? Without really any evidence other than obviously somebody being deceased. Now the actual scene of the crime or whatever incident, whatever you want to call it, the gun is facing totally the wrong way. The shell's ejected the wrong way. It was put together by junkies is what it looks like. The guy's not bleeding because he's already dead. Like, if you shoot yourself in the head with a shotgun, you should be profusely bleeding out until you're dead, primarily. That's probably your first cause of death, is just going to be the fact that your unlimited bleeding is going on. That'll probably take you down before the bullets damaging the organs will, but not if you've taken a mega dose of heroin and your blood is not even pumping.
You're already
you know
dead,
what I mean?
right.
That was not a bloody crime scene. The way his, like, he was supposed to, I guess, have used his foot, but he had shoes on, and like, it just seems like it was staged by, and according to the narrative of Joe Burns, it was staged by drug-addled people who were using a lot of drugs at the time they were staging it. Like, he had put his heroin needle back up in the kit and closed it all up and put everything away. Like, first of all, if you're killing yourself, why do you put things away at all? You know what I mean? You think you would be sliding into this urgent thing that you're going to mistakenly do that's a temporary choice that permanently takes your life. But you would think there would be some degree of lack of starting to care about what's going to happen after it's over. You know, I mean, some people could care, you know, if they're really a caring, decent person, but I don't think like making sure that the scene doesn't have a needle that's out of place when you're about to shoot yourself in the head and turn the whole place into something that somebody's going to have to pick brains off the ground in. Like, I'm not buying that he was just so thoughtful. He didn't want to have to pick up a needle. He's also going to shoot himself in the head and blow his head all over the place. Like, all this stuff it sounds more like a junkie put the scene together and didn't think through. Like, that doesn't make any sense that he would put that back in there. You know what I mean? Like, and they left so much evidence in the scene. They left a receipt for the bullets. And like, you know, they were saying, oh, it's because Kurt didn't want anyone to think he'd been murdered, which nobody does that. Nobody thinks they're going to think someone murdered them if they kill themselves. That isn't a real thing that anyone worries about. And especially to provide overwhelmingly strange levels of evidence. That's one thing police talk about when there's a strange level of evidence. You know what I mean? When you walk in, it's like, oh, it's the gun. Oh, and the receipt for the gun. Oh, we know exactly who paid for it. With a credit card. Oh.
Case closed. We're done here.
This is all real good. Like, normally you don't run into that. Happens. Normally you run into a scene, you don't know a lot of the details, and it takes you months and months to come to those details. That's more typical. So, like, this one was just so fast done. And yeah, I think I'm leaning more and more that this can be like a Diddy or an Epstein, where one day it's like, oh my God, wow, this really took place. Like, they've just. Well, I mean, I was kind of going to bring up. So there's a couple thoughts here. First is, if anyone wants a really good documentary, you should watch the Nick Broomfield, Kurt and Courtney, which came out right 2 years after Kurt Cobain died. That, in my opinion, is the deepest and most accurate analysis of the aspects of Courtney's manipulative behavior that you're talking about here. He interviews her family, and I just love Nick Broomfield's style of documentaries. But Nick Broomfield also, in my opinion, made the best documentary about Tupac and Biggie. And it's the same thing. Like, a lot of the ideas, when he was presenting them, they were falling on deaf ears. But now, especially with the Tupac and Biggie, with all the insight we now have from Diddy going down revealed insights that tie him pretty closely to the assassination of Notorious B.I.G., because just like Kurt Cobain, Notorious B.I.G. was metaphorically going to divorce himself from Puff Daddy, and that was Puff Daddy's $1 billion ticket. So I am inclined to agree with you that as time rolls on, some of this stuff is either going to be confirmed indirectly or be revealed. And even again in that documentary, Nick Broomfield is the first person to propose the concept of Il Duce, the person Il Duce that becomes a part of that. Yeah, there was offered money to kill Kurt.
Right, and that, not saying that's true or not. I'm just saying that Nick Broomfield.
So, we don't know, but I mean, he claimed it, and he was also a meat. So there's that,
it's coincidence. There's a lot of strange coincidences around.
I'll tell you one thing with the royalties is like, okay, when you get multi-billion royalties, like, don't sell them, because, like, okay, let's say you have 70% royalties you've sold out, and like, let's say you're 30% owner and you're a part of the vote, and you're not agreeing to vote to put your shit in a fucking tampon commercial because you're just like not about that. And then the other 70% of the people are basically funds. They're basically like ETFs that are running this. And it comes down to, like, if we smoke this dude, we have 100% control over this multi-billion-dollar. And you think music revenues are, like, from a financial standpoint, I'm really into economics. I'm one of those people that's pro-capitalist. I think investors are doing good things, and most of the time when they're not, when they're given the opportunity to. If they're not, they'll go to war. But if they are given the opportunity to, like, if we have a narrative that the business world is going to be good and we're going to have cool products, investors are usually doing really great things at those times in the world. And like, so I come from that standpoint, but there's also elements with money where money is in power has to be protected and secured, and there has to be, checks and balances. And like, if there's too much money and not enough ability to protect it, people are just going to start getting and stuff like that's going to pop off. That's just how that works. If it's multi-billions of, like, the ultimate financial product is music royalties that are of a song that everyone loves, because those pay you forever. and you put nothing in. They have no chance.
You don't really have to do anything.
You know what I mean? There's no chance you're going to get a capital call and have to put money in. There's no chance that it's going to crash or something. Like, you just get money forever. If you're in the Nirvana loop, you get some weird money forever. That shit is playing everywhere. It's in Walmart now. It's everywhere. Poor Frances Bean cannot escape her dad for a day. She can't get a day off of thinking about her dad killing himself because it's playing everywhere. Like, she got a weird joke. But you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of money it produces. So when you have that kind of money, you have to be walking with like 100 bodyguards, and you have to have a bodyguard pointing a gun at the head of that bodyguard too. You know what I mean? And you don't know. And unfortunately for a guy like Kurt, who's a redneck, he's a redneck from the woods. He's probably never been in a place with more than like 1,000 people at it, except at a concert in his life. And now he's supposed to have billions of dollars and protect it. And he doesn't know somebody who could protect his car from getting broke into. Nonetheless, and anyone who's newly rich, he doesn't have any pre-rich guys he can turn to. You know what I mean? Like, if you were pre-rich and you were hood, you might have a couple thug dudes that you're your friend at least, and you can start paying them. That's what all your rappers do. They might have had a couple of like guys that were thugs that they can pay, and now they have security, and they know this guy from when they were kids. They're buddies, so they know this guy actually has their back to a point. But when you just become explosively weird rich and you didn't even mean to, like, you may just and not know how to navigate that. You know what I mean? It's just too much money and power. It's too easy for someone to, I mean, you see it in, like, let's say an old person in a family is about to die, and there's differences in opinion about the medical treatment. You know, sometimes people are kind of like, let's speed this up, you know, and get the money going, because, you know what I mean? You see that. It sucks. It's gross when people do that. I think it's disgusting. Unbelievably disgusting when I see that and immediately change my opinion about somebody forever. But it happens that almost most families, it happens in some way.
Almost guaranteed. Yeah, it's almost guaranteed to happen.
If you don't have the right executor of your will, that type of shit will happen. But like that's why you gotta choose that more based on principles than based on who you like the most or something, so that way you don't end up pulled by it. But like, that's something that happens even in just families with $1 million up to grabs in their inheritance. You know what I mean? Like, so you put billions of dollars of just royalties that just crank, where you just have hundreds of thousands a month. Think about what that would be like to be Frances Bean. I mean, the only thing is that, well, your dad killed himself publicly, and you have to be constantly bombarded with that. So there's this, I guess for her, it might be like not worth it. She might like be like, hey, you know what? I actually trade that for
at what
like
cost?
A dad or something. But when you think about if you didn't have to go through that, let's say you could just smoke somebody and have that, and you could just have $150,000 a month for absolutely the rest of your life.
People have been killed for way
that is way more than what it takes to get somebody to kill someone. You know what I mean? That is way over the edge.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I've come down on this one. I do believe I'm leaning 60-40 that I think we'll end up with a Diddy Epstein moment regarding Kurt's death. And then there will be other possible deaths, Kristen Pfaff connected to it and other ones. And it'll be kind of looked at as like a criminal enterprise. And then that criminal enterprise allegedly could include Courtney Love as an instrumental figure in it. Now, she's also connected to Epstein. Do you see her in a picture? There's a picture of Prince Andrew writing a number or something down while Courtney and an underage girl, you know, it looks like Courtney's actually introducing this underage girl to Prince Andrew in the picture. It looks like that's exactly what's happening. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't be too shocking.
And there's another one where her and Prince Andrew are on a rug in front of a fireplace alone somewhere. You know what I mean? So this is someone she's close to, and then she acted like in the media, like she's like, oh my God, I can't believe Epstein mentioned me, blah, blah, blah. And she was circled. Among other people that were circled were also co-conspirators. I'm not saying that makes her one, but Epstein, among his black book, circled Courtney and circled some people like that were co-conspirators were also circled. You know what I mean? So like, why was she circled in there? You know what I mean? Like, why is she in that picture? You know, was she hanging with Diddy, Epstein? Was this like kind of, there's like powerful up people were kind of just acting like that in those days. And they were just kind of doing it, which is what I remember.
Kinda.
I went to high school in 97. Let's be honest. I saw a little bit of LSD my senior year of high school. So I kind of was good at it, and it kind of got me into trouble with thugs and stuff. And I had thug friends of mine that I knew from when I was a kid that I could pay and then it would protect me. That kind of thing. I got into that. Dipped my toes in that world, realized it was too stressful for me, and dipped my toes back out. But like at that time, everybody was doing it. It was like the highest crime era ever. It was the most corrupt era ever. Cops were beating the fuck out of you if you got pulled over, and just beating the shit right out of you and just like throwing you in a ditch and being like, don't come back here again. Yeah, like that shit really happened back then. You know what I mean? It was the time when Waco, they killed 100, fucking 40 babies, just bombed the shit out of it. You know what I mean? It was just a whole different time. Shit was more ruthless. My senior year of high school and the year after that, I had guns pulled on me multiple times at parties. Like, not even over the fact that I had been dealing drugs and shit. That was just like, people were just wilder back then. There was no video cameras. There was now there's video cameras everywhere, and shit is nowhere near as wild. And people have been raised generationally with video cameras pointed at them, and they are nervous about those video cameras, and they don't act up on the same level. Back then, there was no video cameras, and Mike was right. If you were scary personally, people would do whatever you said out of fear. It was like, and that would get you laid, dude. I had a friend, I'm not going to lie, I had a friend, he got into some bad stuff. And then at one point he got into a altercation, a shooting where he was self-defense, but he killed a couple of guys in self-defense. That went to my high school, and he was my friend. Now, the perception of him at my high school was he hurt someone at our high school. That was the perception, right? Although the truth is he had defended himself. It was a miscommunication situation. But I saw the way the chicks looked at him when he came into the parties. Thinking of him as, they thought he was so sexy. It was like, interesting.
It's a simpler time.
It's the 90s, man. 90s were different. If you come to a party and people thought you had smoked somebody, like instead of like everyone calling the authorities and stuff, like they would just like think you're hot and cool and like give you stuff and make you higher up in the social order. So it's like, when you think about that, it's natural that your Diddy's and your Epstein's and your Courtney Loves will become a top of the social order in that time. And then they also kind of spiraled out once the video cameras got turned on, and they kind of started fading out. You know what I mean? The second video cameras got turned on Courtney Love, she got exposed as kind of like a crazy addict and started having legal problems. You know what I mean? She stopped getting away with certain stuff anymore. Now she's kind of got a pretty bad reputation. She actually got so bad of a reputation, you can't actually damage it in court. I think there was actually a court case about that her reputation is undamageable because she damages it on purpose so much that, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't damage her reputation. That may be one reason she doesn't sue anyone for the Kurt Cobain allegations, but she also doesn't sue anyone for the Kurt Cobain allegations, which would bring you into a legal proceeding that would cause discovery of your emails and things. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know what that means. I can't say, everything's alleged with all that, I have to say. Because we don't know what we don't know, and we only know facts that create mosaics of narratives, really on both sides. Even the official story contains a lack of facts. You know what I mean? Like, it does contain some facts, but like even the suicide note, it doesn't read like one, and the last 4 lines are in a completely different handwriting. And those last 4 lines seem suicide note-y, and everything else seems like it has something to do with like a band press release of quitting the band. So like that one, to me, that's just kind of my thoughts on it. There's a lot to it. Everyone should check out Joe Burns. Sorry. He has a book like Sorry to Kurt, I'm Sorry, I think it's called. And just consider his narrative. He claims this is God's truth, and he's getting old and sick. So it could be a deathbed type confession. It also could be a guy who's desperate for drug money and trying to make a book that's liable to sell. So, I'm not going to be dishonest about both sides. I'm not going to act like there's not flaws to the one I'm leaning 60 on. Because I'm also leaning 40 that he's a junkie, he's made it up, and there's a lot of people opportunistically glomming onto something, including Tom Grant, all the way down the line. That could totally be true, but just preponderance of stuff, it's just like there's more evidence to me that he's been smoked. I hate it, but... Well,
and again, means and motive.
Right. And also...
And at that time, that was $1 billion, and at that time, it was $1 billion enterprise.
Kurt's death killed that moment, and Kurt's death killed rock.
Yeah.
And rock has not been really popular. The only type of pop rock that got popular since Kurt died was my dad rock or whatever, you know what I'm saying? From like Korn and that kind of stuff was the only, only rock that ever reached multi-platinum status ever again to that level. And then from there, rock went downhill because Kurt killed himself. It's like we're all feeling guilty. Like, you know what I mean? It just kind of like was no longer fun anymore to talk about chicks, or is no longer fun to talk about. That was supposed to be a moment where we don't talk about chicks and we don't talk about, and then we go back to it later. And Kurt even probably made an album where he talks about chicks later or something. You know what I mean? Like, we were supposed to veer out of that moment alive with the same creativity going, but instead his suicide kind of like ended that. And now we were back on boy bands. Everybody just wanted to refresh their mind and go to like happy, cheery pop and stay there forever, and it's never ended. We've stayed there ever since. And it's like, I think one of the things is this Diddyism of the unaliving of Kurt Cobain may be one of the things that brings it back. You know what I mean? Like, part of it coming back will be okay, we didn't really understand the history that we were dealing with. What happened to Kurt is he was just so sick and so real that he got so famous and so rich, and he got surrounded by the worst people and got smoked. And like, whoa, you know what I mean? It's a whole other ballgame. You know, so maybe the one positive to all this is that this can come through and we can have a revival of music, and we can, you know, find all the people in the 90s that were just ruthless everyone and put them in jail.
Yeah,
or they were anyone who was sexually doing things to people and stuff that they didn't want. They can go to jail, and we can have all these people in jail that belong in the jail or under the jail, wherever, near or under, somewhere not out in the general public where they could like do this again. You know what I mean? And then also, if art and music could go back to where it was like when Nirvana came out, like Pixies was on the radio, Nine Inch Nails, Smashing Pumpkins, like shit would have never been on the radio. And it was like nothing but shit, like the Sonic Youth was on the radio, like the 3 channels of radio. One of them had Sonic Youth at the time. The other one had NWA. You know what I mean? It was a sick time. And now, like, that kind of shit can't even exist, because if you don't have a hashtag of a style of music that already exists, you can't exist on an algorithm. Yeah. So we need to just post everything. It's all over. All your genres are over. Perfectly tuned, whatever is over. If it's not real, coming from your heart, and you didn't play it, and nobody's going to care. And also, if it's a copycat genre, we don't need that. We already have so much of that. Just make a new genre. Make your music its own genre, and then post everything. We're past everything, but also post everything. Just put it all out there. Make new things. It's the new movement, man. I'm telling you, that's what's going to rise us back to that Nirvana moment where the good guys win in music, and the formulaic crap is over. And
I love it.
AI is going to force us to do it.
Post everything is the new way for sure. I love that. We've hit the 2-hour mark, and we have to cut it off. Sadly, I was really hoping we'd have time to get on to some Epstein. But dude, if you're into it, we could probably do a whole other episode. Even the same thing with the Kurt and Courtney stuff. Like, that is such a deep rabbit hole that very few people entertain both sides. They either have no idea about it, or they don't want to listen to it and kind of dive into it. So I was super stoked to see you like posting about this.
Yeah, let's maybe do another one and
next...
just like maybe take the feedback we get. Let everybody, like, bear in mind, I know we're talking about a lot of crazy topics, and people are going to get inflamed. Like, that's just the world I live in. So you can feel free to be inflamed in the comments, or as much as you want. Call me whatever you want to call me, or whatever. But also, we can take some of that feedback that we get and use it on the next one, and kind of like, dig into some of those topics that way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Target things a little bit differently. Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be good to get into some Epstein, get into some other stuff. Yeah. So yeah, we'll definitely rock and roll later on.
We think these things are so unrelated, but the more that comes out about all this stuff, the more that we're realizing it's a little more intertwined.
Everything's intertwined. There's an ocean and a flow. And everything's, there's a flow. Right now, we're in a really disrupted, choppy flow because there's a lot of systems that are changing underneath and around us. And that we're all, once these are set, we'll get back into more of a flow. But things go in a flow. In the 90s, the flow was very destructive. It was school shootings. It was selling drugs. It was NWA. It was every insult was normal. Everybody's senses of humor, if it wasn't like rude, it wasn't funny. It was just a darker time. Then everything was super dark, and it kind of pinnacled in Kurt's death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of traumatized a whole generation of people. And you really didn't see it. Probably traumatized the whole grunge movement. Pretty much every other singer died. You know what I mean? And it's possible Mark Lanigan killed him and died in degree of sort of a slow deterioration of doing drugs. I mean, obviously I don't know that, but he could have just been doing drugs harder because he was, you know, feeling guilty or something. We don't know that, but
trying to eat the memory.
Like if you watch Mark Lanigan playing with Dave Grohl in Queens of the Stone Age, every time Mark Lanigan is unusually jacked up. I mean, he's like on stage, like the amount on something you'd probably want to be if you were like feeling a little bit weird about you smoked somebody's bandmate or something. You know what I mean? A lot of this is totally speculative. I have to repeatedly say that. These are not facts, but you can watch that video and think about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I'm not going to get you in some legal shit by claiming shit that ain't real, but you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying.
This is, we're talking alleged hypothetical.
Alleged on everything. Other than the few things where I said there's a factual court document or something right before it. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, we can do another one, man. I'm all down. It's good times. You got a really good pace to it where we can explore deep thoughts. You know what I mean? Deep concepts. And that's what's good about this format.
I figured I knew just from following all the stuff that you've done over the past at least 15 years that I've known about you. I knew this was going to be fun and interesting. I figured it would probably bleed over into another one, so I'm not even really mad about that at all. And I really appreciate not only Rado for hooking this up, but I appreciate you being flexible with the scheduling and coming on here and do this. This is super fun. It's been super cool to like pick your brain. And I want to make sure I give you the floor for a second to tell people where to check out the things that you're doing.
Yeah, my name is Barry Donegan. I'm in a band called Look What I Did. My band's got 20 plus years of releases. We're about to put out a new one called Post Everything. That's kind of like, you know, trying to nudge everybody where I'm going artistically with this. I've also, I'm a personal trainer and I can do online fitness. I do training in person and I'm really into health, fitness, sports. You know, I actually spend most of my time in the world of music and working out. And then I dabble briefly with my political laser because it's like high stress on my body. You know what I'm saying? But, I limit how much of it I do per day or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I used to do it kind of semi-professionally, but semi-professionally because I only did it for things I believed in, which doesn't make you enough money to do it professionally. But you know what I mean? Sometimes they would give you money, though, what you're doing. Because there is a lot of money in radical politics, whether people know it or not. Like all those people at the protests are being paid at these protests. If they show up with signs that are printed, then they were paid. Like, how do you get a printed sign for something that happened yesterday? Like if somebody printed them, they've been
organization
waiting for you to get mad, and now they're going to pay you.
A larger level of organization.
Yeah, that kind of.
For sure.
But yeah, with that said, yeah, that's yeah, we got to do another one, man. We got to do another one for sure.
I we'll talk once we're done here. There's a couple things with Epstein that I think are specifically relevant to you. You're not in the files, though. I swear, I looked at all of them. There. Barry's not in the files. My
grandma's in the WikiLeaks cables, but that's for telling the Soviets that they were doing forced labor. And you know what I mean? So it was an international incident.
Well earned.
It restarted the Cold War, according to the Times of London. But so look what I did. Check our albums out, man. I promise to God they're sick. And we're underrated, in my opinion. I'll stand on that.
100%.
Underrated.
I will also stand on that too. I think even if you just look at like what you guys are doing when you were doing it, it's almost impossible that there aren't people that listeners are listening to that were not influenced by you. It's almost impossible. All of those links will be in the description though. So yes, go check out his TikToks. There's a fun mix of fitness music and wild political rants. It's my favorite content on there anymore. TikTok has become kind of barren. You're definitely the spice of life on there. And support what Barry does. He's a cool dude. He's a great guy with great skills. He's going to do great. But this, everyone, this has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. Next time we're talking about Epstein.
I'm in. I'm down.
All right. See y'all.
This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. The end. with your host, James Oliva. Executive producers, Clint G and James Oliva. That's obnoxious. Sound design, mix, and master by James Oliva. Literally no one cares. For more totally legitimate business, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Totally Legitimate Business or add us on TikTok at TLB Pod. When will this end? Thank you for listening. Now get back to work. Move it along.